Good evening, I'm Paul Kunkemuller, I'm Chair of the City of Groton Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'm calling our meeting for Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 to order at 6:40 p.m. First item on our agenda is roll call. So I am here, Ms. Bergeron is here, Mr. James is here, and Mr. Rusk is here. Mr. Boris and Mrs. Lothrop are excused, and Mr. Jenkins is not here. First item on our agenda is approval of minutes from the September 17th, 2024 regular meeting. We don't have those available, updated version of those available tonight, so we'll review and approve those minutes at our next meeting. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's for text amendment for the plan of conservation and development. It's text amendment number 24-01. It's planning and economic development for the city of Groton to amend the plan of conservation. Right, so what we'll do is I'll open the public hearing and then we will continue it until next meeting on the,
Next regularly scheduled meeting.
which is November the 19th.
Yes.
So that's what we'll do. So I'm gonna read the public hearing procedure announcement. As I mentioned, good evening, I'm Paul Kunkemuller, Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to open the public hearing for text amendment number 24-01. The purpose of this public hearing is for the commission to receive input from the applicant, proponents, opponents, and all interested parties or citizens who wish to comment on the aforementioned application. It is important to note that once this application is received by the commission, no member of the commission may comment on or discuss this application with any other members of the commission. The applicant or applicant's agent, member of the public, or interested party, except during the public hearing proceedings. Once the hearing is closed, commission members may only discuss this application with commission members during deliberations. The hearing is being recorded and meeting minutes are being documented. Anyone wishing to speak shall do so from the microphone. Please state your name clearly, spelling your last name for the record, and provide your address. Please speak slowly into the microphone and reintroduce yourself each time you speak. The commission uses the following procedure during public hearings. Each hearing will be introduced and the legal notice read. The applicant or designated agent will present the application. The commission and staff will have the opportunity to ask questions or provide comments. The applicant will then have the opportunity to address staff and commission questions and comments. The chair will then ask for public comments in the following order: comments in favor of the application, comments in opposition to the application, comments that are neither in favor or opposition of the application. Any questions to the applicant, staff, or commission shall be addressed through the chair. The chair will pose the question or questions to the appropriate party or parties. Please limit public comments to how the application does or does not comply with land use regulations or the plan of conservation and development. The applicant will then have the opportunity to address public comments and questions. The commission and staff will be provided further opportunity to ask additional questions and offer further comments. These may be directed to the applicant or a member of the public who previously commented or submitted information for the record. The applicant and members of the public will have one opportunity to respond to commission and staff questions or comments. The commission will then decide whether to close or continue the public hearing to a future date. Once the hearing is closed, the commission is unable to hear additional comments or accept exhibits or correspondence in favor, opposition, or with the neutral position of the application. The commission will then deliberate upon the application. Deliberations will occur during the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the public is welcome to listen to the commission's discussions. Agendas are posted a minimum of 24 hours in advance of a regular or special meeting of the commission and are provided on the city's website and at the city clerk's office. During deliberations, commission members will discuss the application with input from staff. The commission will then take into consideration relevant testimony and information provided by the applicant and members of the public. Following deliberations, the commission will then vote on the application. Vote outcomes could be to approve with conditions, deny, or deny with prejudice. Are there any questions regarding these procedures before I open the public hearing? All right, for the record, I'm opening the public hearing for text amendment number 24-01. From the Planning and Economic Development Commission of the City of Groton. It's to amend the plan of conservation and development. So the public hearing is now open. Since the applicant is not here tonight, we will need to continue the public hearing until our meeting on November 19th of 2024. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Rusk. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Bergeron. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of continuing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion is approved. 4-0-0. All right. Okay, regular meeting. Anything else? Okay, so ongoing businesses, discussion of possible zoning regulation amendments. So we all got updated copies of the regulations that Russell has been diligently working on. And we really have to retype everything.
No, but I did not retype everything, but what I did do was I changed as much as I could until I had to print all of these for each of you. And so there are that you got 2 packets plus the map. Just for the record also to be clear, these are drafts, it's not an application, it's not a final copy of anything. These are working drafts still. One copy had most of the changes marked. And if you had gotten a color copy, which nobody did, it would have been in red, but it's underlined and you can tell by the amount of ink that it took to print it. The other is a clean copy so that you could read through the entire set of regulations. So that you could see how it all works and comes together as a single document. We've been doing it kind of piecemeal, chapter by chapter and section by section. So that's what you received. You did receive also the updated map, draft map that we've been talking about with updated numbers.
Right, and that's got the that has the also has the dwelling unit acre calculation on it. That's updated map. That's correct. That what they're doing in the lower left.
I'm sorry, I missed the.
On the lower left on the map is that's the dwelling. That's
Yes,
the calculation of max dwelling unit.
the absolute maximum number of dwelling units that would be there.
Okay.
The other thing, again, just for the record to be very clear that all of the building heights are measured in feet, not in stories. They are listed in both so that people who are not familiar with how many feet there are to a story or to a first story versus a second or third story can more easily understand it. And that is in bold on the upper right hand corner.
Yes. All right, thank you. So any questions or comments on the map? Let me start there. So Leslie, I had one on the table on the lower right.
We're just talking about it.
Oh, okay, I think the second column should be minimum height in feet, correct?
The second,
On the table on the low right, there's zones and there's two columns titled, it's like right curly headed max height in feet. And the first one I think should be min, right?
yes,
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then they should all be 35 feet, 2.5 stories for the minimum. Right. Based on I think on what we had in the table. I had one other question, and that's about that little triangular piece on by the where the advanced improvements is now.
Yep.
That's GC, correct?
that's actually GC 40.
Oh, that's GC 40.
I mean, it
Okay.
can be whatever we
Okay,
decide it
so
to
I-
be, but, I think if you zoom in on
There's a little space there.
there's, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that was. There is a house. Well, a residential structure that I think has business in it and at least one residence. In it.
And that's on that is.
When we
north- I mean,
added
that
the-
is south of Broad, correct?
yes. No, north of Broad,
North of Broad.
sorry.
Okay.
I think that when we changed 35 to 40. That's why I love having lots of people look at this because this is important stuff. At 35, it was gonna be the same as everywhere anyway.
Would have been the same as the GC essentially.
Right.
It would just would have allowed for residential.
If that triangle does not include the west side of, I guess it's North Street there?
Yeah.
If it only includes the triangle, which is the.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
residential, commercial dwelling that's about 2 stories. And the commercial structures that are north of that.
Yeah.
I would recommend that triangle remain GC. Just because of the prior uses that are also allowed in GC.
It makes sense to me. That's.
For the purposes of the lower right hand text box on the map, you may want to double check what the minimum height is in GC. Seems like it's lower than 35 feet.
If there's anything lower than 35 feet.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with making that triangle? You see?
Yes, that makes sense. All right. Anything else on the table? Or no, Matt? All right, so on for the regulations, so. I've been through them. And I had a lot of comments, most of which are formatting types. So I don't know that it's really worth our time tonight to go through those page by page. I'm glad to sit down with you, Leslie, and kind of go through them, and I, Sue, you're also willing to do that, is that?
When I mentioned that when you change PDF to into a Word document, especially then if you change it back. I spent about 3 days trying to just get the page numbers to number correctly by section. I'm glad to hear that that's what you found. I knew that there were a lot of those header and footer in particular issues. And I just didn't want to hold up getting drafts to you. So I'm, if there's anything of substance, we should certainly.
That's, I think that's what I think, what I'd like to focus on tonight. And like I said, and rather than, have you, we could just sit down and go through it in probably in an hour and, and go through all of them. So you don't have to go back looking at every line of every page again, because I'm sure you're like, yeah, you have an ice stream.
I think the important thing to remember though is when you've written it, it's impossible to review it because you know what you wanted to write.
Yeah.
So that's how you read it. So it's good to have independent eyes look at it.
Absolutely.
Once we make the changes, you can go back, read it. It's not what you did.
So that sounds reasonable to everybody. We can, kick it off with, we can go through it, and anybody who has any substantive, comments or concerns, we can go through those and talk about it. Sound good? All right, who wants to kick it off?
First question, are we looking through the copy with the notes or the clean copy?
The clean copy is is a little more up to date.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on the clean copy.
Okay.
I went through the copy with notes too.
Do you have, based on which one,
I'm looking at the clean one right now.
were you looking at the other one before?
I have them both, but I've been thumbing through the clean copy.
Okay.
Mine are the clean copy.
Right. So
Can I ask a kind of a high level question?
absolutely.
Okay. We kind of been talking about a text amendment to the regulations for the purposes of adding the changes to the general commercial zones, adding general commercial and plus residential. And I think we were also adding a set of definitions that our hope would be that eventually the set of definitions would be good enough to then be applied to the rest of the zones. This document looks like it is all the zones, all the regulations, including the things that we have recently been working on. I just want to make sure that we understand that that's the intent. There's probably a lot of stuff in here that we are not touching right now that is existing. And that when we present this as an amendment, we should probably have like a 1 or 2 pager, like a list of affected sections or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the current regulations are a matter of public record. They're easily accessible. I don't think we can or reasonably should be presenting every chapter, all the residential zones, for example, and things that haven't been part of our discussion for this workshop. So I think we should make sure that even though we're gonna be, the amended document is gonna be soup to nuts, all the regulations. I think that we should make it clear that the work we're doing and the changes that will be from the current existing publicly accessible document are the following sections. And then that is where you're gonna see fresh ink. And, that's where our attention will be, obviously, when we present it, when we defend it or take comments on it. And the rest of it should just be very, very clearly be. That's not part of the discussion at this time, because it hasn't been changed. It's part of the public record. It's existing regulations.
Right, I mean, some of the changes that were made to the other sections were things like correcting titles of like the zoning official, correct? Right, those kind of things. And they don't have any substantive impact on the intent of the regulation, it just makes it clearer.
Okay, so the work that we did about a year and a half ago
Exactly.
to change some of the these and thous and to, provide consistency in definitions and consistency in titles and things like that. Those are
They're
widespread.
currently incorporated.
Those have been incorporated, and they were only the ones that everyone agreed on. The
But
ones
they-
that we said, we're gonna workshop these, or we're gonna,
Yep.
like the sign regulations, for instance, we said we were gonna do a workshop on that. We then did a workshop on the parking.
Right.
We did talk about that, so signage is not included, and there are no changes in signage included in here. But there are changes in parking. The other thing that's in here is the ones that were incorporated based upon changes in state statute.
So when we put this out, a notice to the public, are we just saying that you can review the regulations on the website? Are we providing? Because what I'm trying to get at is there a way for us to just segregate the GC zones? So that they're aware, if they want to look at what's being changed, they just would look at the GC zones and not the rest, and we just say the rest is staying intact, although being a part of the submission.
Well, I think we just answered my original question. And the truth is, there are a lot of small changes, non-substantive changes throughout the regulations.
Mhm.
And I think that when we present on the 19th, that can be kind of a high level, but there are a lot of little changes. Nobody's attempting to slip anything past anybody, but just be aware that if you look at the online copy, you'll see that the title here is now, slightly changed, and it's just for consistency or to upgrade to, language that's consistent with state statutes, that kind of thing. But we just need to make that clear. And that the thrust of what we're trying to communicate, the major changes that everyone wants to know about, are mostly concentrated in the GC and GCR zones.
So the other place that it is, in I think it's 7.1, the parking, there are a couple of places, there are, I think, 3 areas where there's substantial changes. Because we're following a different methodology. But
So I just think, Leslie, that we need to kind of have a
I
summary of changes kind of thing so that we can itemize it a bit and talk to it.
I totally agree with you. One of the things that I'm thinking about, and I'm not sure that I know how to do this, but I can either figure it out or get somebody to figure it out, is to take the existing regulations, the ones that are the legal regulations that we use today,
Mhm.
and do a compare documents so that there is a marked up, accurately marked up copy. My head's spinning a little right now because I know how much work that is gonna be.
Well,
But
as long as the
it is
documents
what-
are apples and apples, it should be just
Yes.
pressing a button and hitting print. In theory, it's that easy. I understand what they're,
Are we, so just to clear the conversation, I guess, are we planning on providing some sort of printout at that kind of presentation meeting? Are we planning on posting it online so it's easily accessible online? What is the like preferred method of showing people what the changes are?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we've been talking about sort of on the periphery all this time is we're gonna do a presentation to the public.
Yes.
There'll be a PowerPoint that would be available we'll make it available online. We'll also make a hard copy available.
A hard copy of the presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
And we'll make that available with the city clerk through my office. And so anybody who comes in and wants to see a copy of it, you can come in, and also a copy at Bill Memorial Library.
I guess my question is less about the hard copy of the presentation and more of a hard copy of the changes.
Just
Because-
section.
All of
Because
that can
we
be
have-
put online, just like any application.
Okay, because we have this document, which highlights the, this one from earlier. It highlights above, there's section headers that have the section that's being changed, and then the changes that are made. So like this exact type of document is what I think should be presented to them, right? So they can see, okay, so this is 4.6.d, that's what's being changed. So they don't have to look through the whole document to see what's being changed. They don't have to go through the summary of the table of contents or anything. It's all in one document, online or printed, that they can just look at, and it says, okay, these are the changes to the definition section. These are the changes to the GCR section. These are the changes to the GC section.
And I think that what Leslie said about being able to post those online, I think that's pretty key. Because for the presentation, I think if we have a set of slides that talk about high level changes, the meat and potatoes of what the public has been waiting to hear. And then point to the files online that if folks are interested in the gory details, it's there transparently, it's accessible on the city website. You can see the existing document, you can see the marked up proposed change, that we'll be presenting when we do our public hearing with the proposal. I think that's probably the way to do it, and not to deflect, but we just simply can't have 50 copies of the marked up version and have, people going through it page by page. That's not the intent of our workshop public presentation.
I personally think it's important to do it with just the one small document.
Yes.
Of the change section. And the reason for that is if you say the regulations are out there and then they come to the meeting and they find out it's only that one section, if somebody went through that entire document, you're gonna be upset. And if they go through that entire document, they may think there's changes in there that they come in and want to discuss, which really weren't changed.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I guess what I meant was you'll be able to, in our slide pack, we'll say, here's where these things are found online. When you go on the city website, you should be able to get to the existing regulation document, signed, sealed, delivered, okay? You should be able to get to the marked up in red draft copy that we're working with. So they don't have to read the whole thing. They can skim and see where all the red things are. This has been lined out and the language has been changed to, it no longer says puppies, it says young dogs, right? And so you'll be able to see what we're working with in the whole complete red sections that are new and, the old sections that very little change except a couple of red things. That's what I think they should be able to get to, but I don't think we should be handing those out at our presentation. We certainly shouldn't be going through that page by page when we try to just present the high points.
Right, and I think that's where the point Cameron was making was that, it probably would be good to have like one document that summarizes the significant changes as well. So there's one place people can go, that's online, they can look at it before they come to the meeting, so they're not, they show up there, they didn't go through the whole document to find that we're, only talking about 10 pages of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you said, my point is this is a very big document and it's gonna be difficult for the average person who hasn't read the entire thing before, probably hasn't looked at the entire thing before, to go through, even if they are marked in red, they're going through the document and they're gonna be long stretches where there's no red ever. So I think it would be better if we had a smaller document, because again, this is like what,
I remember I said 1 or 2 pages.
20
I think your idea is better if we.
like
you
20
work with
pages.
that already.
Because we've already had something similar to this before that just summarizes all of it, has the headings where it's gonna be.
Put that online too.
Yeah, I think this should go online, and I actually do think that, I mean, it may be a pain and a bit expensive, but it might be beneficial to print copies. Simply
Of that.
because of this, the
Yep.
smaller packet, not the big, not the huge packet, obviously.
Yep.
Of the smaller packet, simply because we're going to have people that are gonna be maybe less media or tech savvy.
Sure.
And I know the website can be confusing to some people, so I think it would be.
Well, they just don't have access.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be beneficial to include some printed copies of like a 20-page markup at the presentation. So people can take it and read it while we're presenting.
Yep, absolutely.
And the red line is a good idea, but because so many of us have had changes put in there and with so many revisions, I don't think all the different, I think we've accepted a lot of the adjustments already, so to get a clean red lined copy is not gonna be easy.
The problem with going, first of all, let me just say, I agree with everything all of you have said. I am for making this as transparent. And I'm sure you saw, if you just flipped through the markup one, that there are places where it's like paragraphs and then it skips a line and it's another paragraph that's marked, that's crossed out or that's added and underlined. It's not, I'm happy to figure out or get help to figure out how to do both. I think that we ought to, and I'm happy to make every version available online in, hard copy. And I like your idea about making it, having almost like a summary and intent section. It's the smaller section that talks about and maybe gives examples of, for instance, some of the definitions were changed, some of them were added, some of them were taken out. This is an example of one that was taken out. This is an example of one that was put in. And why, and you can get, if you want more information, go to. Having seen this document in probably a dozen different iterations at this point, I am absolutely in favor of making this as easy for the public to understand and as easy for us to communicate. Because to get up and say, this is in part based on form-based code with a healthy dose of use-based code, and it's, people will be throwing, exactly. We want it to be as easy as possible and talk about what generated the reason for the changes, the investigation into it, that everyone is working really hard on this, and that these are why there are changes.
So to your point about the, changes that have been accepted along the way. The existing regulations, and the difference between them, whatever this is, if we can't have accepted things along the way, because we haven't properly voted those into existence.
Well, I'm not saying accepted in regard to accepted as law. As,
Yeah.
When you make changes in the Word document to go from there to THERE.
I'm with you. So we have to
Those we
present,
just did.
right.
And accepted.
I think it's the most transparent, fairest way to do it, is if we can get somebody to do a compare document between existing regulations and the new one. So that anything we did slip in there with a spelling or whatever is apparent. That way, anybody who cares to look through that level of detail has it available, online.
You can
I
just
have-
pull out the significant pieces of that.
Absolutely. That's what we need to present. That's what we need to
I mean,
share.
that's my point, right? But so this document is just like, I mean, obviously, of like, when you first make a text amendment. And you have to write up that form of the text amendment, and everything's crossed out in red, and everything's underlined, that's what I want. That exact text amendment, original document kind of thing, is what I'd like, I think would be most beneficial, and then when we're doing the presenting, it makes it easier on us, because we can say. Okay, folks, turn your pages to page 5, we're gonna be talking about page 5 now,
Right.
okay, now we're talking about page 6, so they can help kind of follow along. And it'll make them be able to read what we're talking about. And make the presentation a bit easier and allow them to be more informed, especially when they're asking questions, they can ask us a bit more pointed questions and point to specific.
But you mean page 5 of this 20 page?
Yes, not this one, I mean the
Right.
20 page, okay,
Yeah.
page 18, yeah.
Yeah.
I have no issue with it at all, because I'm not the one who's gonna be making the comparisons.
So I think that there are, if we look at it as 3 different documents. One is a clean document. One is the what's changed and that markup document. And then a third is a much smaller summary and intent document that talks about,
Significant changes.
yeah,
Not the where we changed, building and zoning official to zoning official.
correct.
Because that
Correct.
change occurs, 40 times.
That's right, yeah. Parking
That's-
changes,
yeah.
new zones.
Right. Right, but there's, those have no impact on the regulation. It's just it's a language cleanup, that's, we change, which to that, or those kind of things.
That's the ones I was saying we did accept.
Yeah, and those are the ones that in that very first document that we were looking at a year and a half ago with on the blue and white spreadsheet. The document from hell, is what I refer to it as. A lot of those were noted as Scrivener errors.
Right.
So it was just. You find it easier word than Scrivener. So it's just-
Label. But yeah, but I think that's, there are really the significant changes where we're
Right.
introducing the new zones and what's involved with those. And what we're proposing to change about parking and those kind of things. And because basically, the major changes have been around, we've added definitions, right?
Yep.
We haven't really changed too many, but we've added a number of definitions. We've made changes, we've added some zones
Yep.
we've added some GCR zones. And, what characteristics about those, what can be done in those zones, what are the building heights and the dimensional standards and those kind of things. And then there were the parking changes, I think those are the 3 biggest chunks, right? That's the meat of it.
Yes,
And everything else the rest of it is.
Great.
Yeah. But it's, when you put together an application, every section that got changed is gonna have to be listed, right?
there are a few at the end that are not, that where they're.
But but every section that does get changed will have to be listed on the application, correct? Is that?
What I think, what I think a better idea is on the application is for you to vote on accepting the entire new document.
Yeah.
So that there's no quibbling over, well, it used to say which, and now it says that, and.
But you'd still have to submit when you send us the application to review, that application will include all of the wording that's changed.
Right, that's what.
And all of the added.
But I guess when I.
Well, could our application say, substantive changes to this section, this section, this section, and various administrative, or scrivener errors and format changes throughout. Or, is that sufficient for our application?
And
Knowing that there's a marked up copy that is available for submission.
in my opinion, the application should have every single change, even if it's a spelling error change, even if it's a title change. I think the application should cover everything.
But you're not voting on each.
Yes,
My point is,
Right,
you're
right.
not
I'm voting
voting
on each one,
on
right,
each
right.
one
I agree.
Right, no,
individually.
no,
You're
but
accepting or rejecting
Right,
the document as a whole
Yep.
that includes everything that has been lined out or underlined or moved or whatever in this document, so that the official document is the document of December or January,
Yeah,
such and
right,
such
right.
a date.
Oh, right, yeah, we're not gonna vote on these, I never intended that.
No, but I think for the purposes of the application page,
Right,
where it says you're voting on, what you're voting on, I think we could and should say, changes as noted in the attached document. And then the attachment to that is the marked up in red comparison document. That where all the little substantive changes can be found. Because if you start trying to list and a comma and a semicolon in paragraph 3 in section 4.4, you're gonna have 57 pages of those kind of things. And if you miss one, Lord help you, because we're not voting, we're not presenting that accurately. I think if we have an accurate marked up copy, and we refer to that as the summary of changes, or as the group or detail list of changes, because they're all identified.
And that's the document that the commission will be voting on to approve or not.
No, I
Or
think
to-
that the clean copy
I'm-
document is the one that we're gonna vote to keep. And the list of
Yes, and the
changes
list
is
of
the
changes
marked up
shows.
red copy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what we walk out of here at the end of the day with is one document with one date,
yes.
because otherwise,
Yeah, yeah.
literally you have both zoning regulations divided between two different volumes.
in my opinion, I get what you're saying, Jason, with how it would be easier if we were looking at a whole document that was marked up instead of having to list every single. But when an application is given to us for an amendment change, that application has to list every single change that's made for us to be able to approve it as an amendment to it.
I
So
agree.
in my opinion, I think it'd be easier for both us to look at and for the, people that are coming to the public hearing to look at, if that application included just a list of all the changes in the same way that you send it in, it'd be like definitions and then under redlining everything that's changed for the definitions. But not as the whole document as like the 20-page thing.
I'm just saying that all of the spacing and characters and lined out capitals and all those things that we have seen so far, that could be thousands of individual changes from the original document. I think that's too much to put on the application page.
Okay.
I think that, that's it. There's so many of those things that
We're
we've been looking
making
at for 2
available a
years.
document that does show every change. But we're also making available clean documents so that if you're not interested in the whiches and the that's, that you can actually look at the substance, the content of it. I agree that all of the changes need to be there, be shown somehow in one document, but that should be the markup document.
Well, I'm taking what he's saying on board. I'm just trying to, in my QA mind, I'm trying to rationalize how we, without getting too legalistic, how we make a vote on an amendment. How we express that amendment to ourselves, because this is our application to ourselves, basically. How we show what we're voting on. And how you express that in an application document. And I just think that there are too many of those individual changes to cover in a sheet or two. There are more changes than would fit in that 20 pager. To itemize every paragraph, every, nuance. That I just think it'd be smoother if we said, if the application said, page stated. Applications as identified in red on the attached document, that attached document is the marked up copy, which has all the comparisons highlighted or whatever.
The way that it's typically done is with the clean copy and the marked up copy. And they both go in as part of the application. Now, that's for a major overhaul. Which this is close enough to that.
This is a major overhaul. So
If it's even. No, but this is, we're doing what needs, the big chunk of what needs to be done, and I do think that after this, as we look at other areas of the city.
Ideally, next time we do this, there'll be more sections that we don't have to touch.
Yeah.
Because we've already fixed the, the language and the errors and the spacing. Now we're just focused on this section for this reason.
Yeah, I mean, we're tackling most of those kind of changes right in this, with this revision. This addresses most of that, those type of wording things, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think I think we know what we want to do, and Leslie, gonna noodle on how to, best make that happen. And, we're gonna have a special meeting on the 29th of October. We can talk about this a little bit more. Leslie can come back to us with some ideas about, what makes sense and what's doable. And, we can kind of hammer it out then.
Yeah, if I've overblown this in my mind, it's 50 things, itemize them on a page, got it. Added section this, change this definition, change these, 3 of these and that. I just felt like the work that we did last year, there were hundreds and hundreds of individual little repeats
Yeah, there are a lot.
throughout, wherever found, kind of.
There's a lot of little stuff.
There
correct,
is, and
replace
I
all.
will tell you, I mean, I can get really picky when I'm writing. And when other people are writing, I can be equally picky, which is harder on myself, but the danger of not doing it is that you end up with meanings that were not intended. You end up with sentences where somebody says, oh, wait, no, the commission meant to say shall not do it, not shall do it. And so it's also one of the reasons that I like to have the commission vote on the entire document.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's certainly the intention.
So I'm gonna. I'll just think out loud for a second.
Sure. That's what we're all doing. It's brainstorming, they call it.
So I'm gonna work on making a clean copy, because really what it's going to get measured against is the existing copy. And so we will have a markup, but it will actually be more accurate than even what we have now.
Right.
So I'm gonna continue to write a clean copy as hopefully there's a lot more writing, but whatever corrections or errors that you all found going through this, if there is, and I'm less concerned about the formatting than that the numbers finally get to be right, and I know they're not. At the moment, because the transposition between the PDF and the Word and whatever things were put in by at least 3 other people who have altered this document, not including me. The consultant and 3 planners, sorry.
So when you say you're gonna be working on a clean copy, you're waiting until Paul and I make our changes first, right?
Yes.
So that's what I think we should be focusing on tonight
Yeah,
and in the next, say, week, is getting the clean copy, right? Coming to an agreement on what the clean copy should say. Right, that's, I think that should be our focus tonight.
Yeah.
And let's try to get that done, and then, then you can work on, Leslie, you can finalize the clean copy, then we'll do the comparison and take a look at the list of what's different. Right, but I think the first, step one here is to finalize the clean copy.
And I think what we're, initially, what we're talking about is as the clean copy for our purposes is not including what's in the header and not including what's in the footer. We do need to make those clean, and we
Right.
will before we make it an application, but the text of the document itself.
Tonight, we're not focusing and documenting spelling errors, indentation,
Right,
headers and footers. We want to catch the big stuff to make sure that we're all in agreement on the big stuff. And Paul and Sue have volunteered to help screen through, to help filter out the little stuff. And at some point before the 29th, if we could get an e-copy of the newest clean copy.
Yep.
That way the rest of us could look at our marked up, and just make sure that everything we were looking for has been updated. And that we're comfortable. Then when we meet on the 29th, maybe we take a quick run through,
yeah.
just as a commission, we give one last,
This is, yeah, one last, okay, this is what we want to move forward.
and the rest of that meeting would be preparation for the presentation.
you expect to go through the whole thing?
I don't imagine the,
Well, I mean, I would just, like I said, I'm
No,
sorry,
No, after we do all our changes and she finishes the clean copy.
Yep.
Are you expecting? I'm getting dry just thinking.
I think if she emails out the new clean copy before the 29th,
Yeah,
we take his homework, skim through it, see the things that you guys have, pushed as updates, see the things, anything we come up with tonight that we flag as an update. You can see the cleanest draft we've seen so far electronically, compare it to our notes. And then when we get together on the 29th, just as a group, we'll flip through and make sure that everybody's fine with that clean copy.
okay, so we're not going page by page and reading it.
No,
Okay, all
no,
right.
because, yeah, no, I don't think, but I mean, I think the individual effort is to skim through and make sure that we don't see anything that jumps out at us. That, paragraphs that just kind of disappear or sentences that don't finish or words that are unclear. But then we focus on the things that are major changes that this commission's been working on, sections that we've been talking about. That ought to be our focus.
yep, okay, I think we're on the same page. So, who wants to start off with significant issues or questions or things you'd like to clarify?
in definitions, I had sent Leslie the definition for commercial greenhouse, and I never gave it to the commission or anything. And because we're allowing it in the new zone, I just want us to look at the definition for commercial greenhouse and make sure it's okay with everyone. Just because no one discussed it.
I looked at it.
I do too, I thought it was.
This is your definition?
Yes, that's the definition I wrote. And I did it without any commission. So I just want to make sure that everyone on the commission is fine with it.
So my only question on it.
Mhm.
Was, yeah, I can't find it. So if it's attached to the house,
Maybe.
So long as it's an accessory structure, I specified accessory structure. Simply because I thought that an accessory structure greenhouse would fit better in the zone that we're putting it in than a whole building, it's just a greenhouse. But that's my personal opinion on it.
The only thing I can really speak to on this is that commercial greenhouses tend to be very lit up all night. They have like 4 hours of dark. If it was something that was over where. Maybe where, the hotel is over in the. 0.75 area in the back. That probably wouldn't bother anybody. But I think probably anywhere else might. And that was if it was as a primary use.
My only thought was, so if it was a residence, and you could attach it to it, and that would still be the commercial greenhouse.
If you're selling them commercially. Yeah. Right, because the definition just specifies for commercial sale.
Yep.
But if you have a personal greenhouse, you don't need a special permit for that. It's only if you'd be doing it for the sole purpose of selling commercially.
Okay,
And those typically don't have lights.
Yeah.
Most of them don't have lights at all, and if they do, they're not. Usually used. During the lighter parts of it.
And commercial greenhouses tend to be significantly larger than personal greenhouses as well.
We have a, a requirement for a special permit in all the zones for a commercial greenhouse.
mhm.
I think there are a lot more elements of a commercial greenhouse than just lighting. That would be, items of concern. The wafting smell of manure, the sound of, hydroponic pumps, whatever, however you can make up. So I don't think that the definition needs to get any deeper than this. I think this is sweet and simple and it
Yeah.
expresses it very succinctly. And the fact that we've got special permit requirement for all zones gives us the ability to use some common sense, in applying,
Kind of fun condition.
My thought was like home birds, it's a store that has a greenhouse attached to it. And so that would be the idea, is if a store that had a greenhouse attached to it wanted to put a commercial greenhouse in as an accessory use to the store.
I think it makes sense.
Oh, the only thing I would question is in our permitting table, this is section 4.5. I really couldn't tell you what page, but sorry, Leslie. Section 4.5. Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Start at the bottom of the page, says commercial greenhouse, community garden accessory use by permit. And then top of the next page, commercial greenhouse. I don't see that this is indicated as accessory use in our permitting table.
Did we not say that if the definition specifies accessory use, then the table did not have to?
Okay.
I remember we've had that conversation before.
Yes, okay, that's what I needed to hear. It says our footnote to the table say all uses shall be considered primary unless otherwise noted as accessory.
Which is noted in the definition. I mean, we can move into the table obviously as well, but.
Why don't just move it into the table and get
Yeah.
it done, and then fits.
This is what most people are gonna look at.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's fun.
So all you would need to do then is the heading of commercial greenhouse. You could just put accessory use only or something. And then both things under that heading would be community garden and commercial greenhouse.
One would be community garden. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think your thoughts there are right on, Aaron. That's what we kind of intended.
All right. What else, Karen, anything else?
No, the definition is not.
I get it.
Go ahead.
My question was, in the definitions, we have places of assembly, public and definition. And that says there were large numbers of individuals select to participate or to observe programs of participation.
That's in the definitions?
That's the definition.
What page is that on? If there's a page.
It's 274.
It's in 2.1.
Okay, thank you.
It's on, I think it's the page after page 20.
That's true, yeah.
So my
Section
question,
two.
my question on that is, when I think of something like clubs. Clubs don't always allow public.
Well, we have a different definition for club anyway.
I thought that was in,
Nightclub / lounge / dance hall is a different definition.
not that kind of club. I'm thinking like the Elks Club,
Oh,
Moose Club. They don't always allow the public.
Well, but I mean, it's large numbers of individuals collective participate, so it doesn't.
Well, I guess the question would be, should the word public be in the definition? Should it just be place of assembly closed, place of assembly unclosed? And-
I get the sentiment. I think we're just arguing over kind of nothing with that though, because in the definition, it doesn't specify anything. It's just public perception of what you think public means. In this
True.
case, I think by places of public assembly, they mean large crowds of large gatherings of people. That's my interpretation at least.
I mean, and actually, I mean, at the Elks Club, they have events there that are just limited to the Elks, so right, I mean, there's. You know, other stuff happens there, there's something that's a. Yeah.
In the details. I don't want to see us sword fighting somebody over the use of the word public when they mean the Italian American Club with a, maximum capacity in the basement of, say X number of people. Is X a large number? Is this, it's not public because it's a private organization perhaps. It's not large because it's only 50. What's your idea of large? That's those sort of things. I don't know that we need to define things to the nth degree, but I just don't want to see us write ourselves into a corner.
And I think the only reason I brought it up was because in the table, it just has places, of course, I can't find that table, but it mentions clubs, churches.
Places
I
of
think that's-
worship,
yeah.
conference center and theaters.
Okay.
It may have at one point, I tried to. Make those as. Reasonable as.
Yeah. it was a public, yeah.
Did we make that included places of worship, conference center, and theaters? Is that in fully exclusive list?
Wait.
As in, like, no other places of assembly would be allowed except for those 3 instances. So if you had,
No,
like, the
it
Elks
wouldn't
Club
be.
wouldn't fit under that definition.
Well, that's
It
the-
shouldn't be.
That's what started my question, is it used to say clubs.
Yeah. And
There are.
Didn't we say something like et cetera or some similar? thing like that?
I think.
Yeah,
Or the
I
like.
don't remember what we originally said.
Places of
Such
public
as.
assembly.
Yeah, we messed with that a lot.
Includes, to me, includes, doesn't, well,
Includes, but is not limited to.
Yeah.
I honestly would just get rid of that, places of worship, conference center, and theaters, just put places of assembly enclosed. And then
or replace the word includes with exempli gratia, e.g.
Additionally, are they allowed anywhere? In the graph, there's nothing.
Oh, no,
there.
Oh, no, it's all below. It's all based
Based
on
on size.
size of
I
the,
see.
I did the same thing at first.
Yeah, it's based upon the concept of people congregating, and it matters. Like what they're talking about, whether they're singing or chanting or stomping their feet is irrelevant. And the number of people that can fit there and all of that is building and
I
fire.
remember reading that
codes.
conversation there.
So, place of public assembly, so we're, okay, so taking out. The only reason I would rethink that taking out places of worship, conference centers and theaters is I tried to put varied enough uses in that example so that if somebody comes in, because the other thing is that places of worship, anywhere you have a single family, you allow single family homes, you have to allow places of worship. So a lot of these things come from sort of complexities in the law that no normal person should.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want anyone to read that and think that it's a fully exclusive list, and so they can only do one of those three.
What if we do
We should
but
put like an et cetera or similar uses,
includes but not limited to?
something like that.
The other thing it's gonna do is, you know, planners down the road.
Yeah.
It's gonna clue them in that there's something to look at if they don't, if it's not making sense, it's gonna say, wait a minute, I need to check into this.
Well, and it
And
gives,
there's
it
a
gives the
reason to
commission
check.
some flexibility too, when, you know, when the next, you know, use request that isn't previously defined. You know, it gives the commission the flexibility to say, I think they can fit underneath that.
So if I open a strip club that's under 1,500 people,
It's under nightclub.
it's.
It's under 1,500 square feet.
It's square feet, it's not people.
Okay,
Only
it's
people with
1,500.
square feet.
Even
are allowed.
1,500 square feet, it's permitted.
Well, that's,
I'd say that would fit under the definition of nightclub, and
Or adult oriented.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, but
And
where is
that's a
the,
pretty well understood distinction.
where is the permitting though on club? My thought is
there's
club.
no permitting, so if it's not on the list, it's not allowed.
Under place of public assembly or under clubs?
We don't have anything for clubs, do we? I don't think we have
Clubs,
anywhere.
lodges and associations, there's a definition actually,
But we don't have it in the table now.
but it's in the, but, okay.
Well,
It is in the definition.
Well, that'll be included but not limited to.
And some of
Yeah,
it
that's
will
what I'm
be
saying.
a clearer understanding of what a particular applicant wants to do.
Yeah, and if someone comes to us and says this strip club is a place of public assembly, I think that's when the red lights start flashing for us
Yeah,
to
we do have this.
be a bit more under scrutiny for that.
Not the literal red lights.
So,
I have two younger sisters who, when they were,
We are recording, just so you know.
I know. I was at the age where I had found out what a red light district was and thinking that I was, you know, so sophisticated. And they just kept thinking that all the references were to places with a lot of red lights.
No.
And it was a
Traffic
while
lights.
later. but like-
All right, so I've got a question on, it's section 2.2. Bottom of the page 23. It's about manufacturing. So we've got manufacturing as an accessory use and as a primary use with two slightly different definitions. And so do we need them both? And my other question, as long as we're talking, is if we're putting manufacturing, we've also got manufacturing light. So I assume manufacturing is different than manufacturing light. But what about EV? Like, we don't, I mean,
Primary use, they build submarine.
well,
And
right,
anything that they do there is connected with that. A cafeteria would be an accessory
accessory
use.
use, right?
And if there's somebody who is literally banging out ball bearings or whatever, you know nothing about how submarines are built. It's a good thing for everybody. I'm not in charge of that.
But it's so my concern about the definition is it says using table mounted electrical machinery or artisanal equipment. And that's, I don't think that really, Jason, tell me if I'm wrong, does that really does that describe what goes on in EV?
It doesn't seem to contrast like manufacturing very much.
That's what I was about to say, those definitions can be are very similar, almost identical.
I completely understand what your intent is, Leslie, on trying to provide an accessory use definition that allows for, you know, those very particular circumstances. I don't think we need 3 entries.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it should be like manufacturing light, manufacturing heavy, right?
Yeah,
Something like
accessory and primary, I think we can leave that to the permitting table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think maybe we could take another run at separating, light and not light. You know, and really, as definitions go, if you want to more carefully define or more clearly define light manufacturing, you know, give limits on that, and then in, you know, manufacturing comma other, or in heavy or industrial or something, you know, just kind of refer to it generically as a scale above the light definition. You know, you don't have to go into all those details, but I understand our goal is to have a threshold where this is not industrial level manufacturing. This is, you know, this is something we want to protect the use so that it can be applied to certain zones without letting it get out of hand for the protection of the zone.
So let me ask you a question. Let's put EV aside for a minute and say all things having to do with. So, I mean, if EV comes in and says, we're gonna build a building and it's gonna have light manufacturing on the first floor, heavy manufacturing on the second and third, and then you know, something else of that.
Well, that's why in the permitting table, we are not allowing heavy manufacturing in any of the zones. And light is by special permit. So I just think we need a definition of where the boundary is between light
Wait,
and
not
heavy.
in any of the zones, or
X is
not in
all-
any of the GC?
I'm just looking at the table. on page-
None of the DCR zones, heavy manufacturing is allowed.
Yeah, we took heavy out of
Yes.
all,
So
in the commercial zone. Right, heavy manufacturing is in the industrial technology zone.
Okay.
Right.
Right, we took it out of.
We don't have the
we took it out of
existing heavy
commercial.
manufacturing in GC
Right,
at all.
and then so we Xed it out of the table.
Yeah,
Because we didn't feel that was a good use of,
Yeah.
of that particular location.
but I do agree with Jason that there needs to be more differentiation between what is light manufacturing. The definition should be made more clear, and like scaling it to intensity makes sense.
I'm
Well,
okay with, you know, light is this, heavy is anything bigger than light.
Mhm.
You know, anything that's not in light.
well, and so I mean, one of the things that we had done is like, you know, now the definition of light manufacturing says that it shall include sail making. And we approved the sail making at less than 6,000 square feet, right? So, I mean, if we're gonna put sail making in the definition here, we gotta, you know, it's as light manufacturing. We wanna put as less than 6,000 square feet in there, and is there some place we can draw a line in terms of size? The nature between heavy and light, you
I
know?
think actually, if you think about what it would be like to live next to a building where manufacturing was going on inside, I would care less about whether it was 6,000 or 7,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet than I would about things like light and noise and vibration and a whole bunch of other things that would disturb my, you know.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
it shade my tomato garden?
And that's where we have the IT zone, right, to put those kind of things in there.
So I just think that, you know, as you were saying, a little more work on the light manufacturing definition. Because we've given that requirement for special permit in all zones. So it gives us a little bit of opportunity to apply common sense and good thought and limitations. Well, we just need to know what our boundaries are for light manufacturing.
I think, I know originally I had asked for a definition of industrial, I think it was, versus manufacturing. And the industrial was, okay, I've got a huge building and we take a finished product and prepare it. What product was finished. And I made the changes to the product and that I may cook it, I may tear it into pieces and ship it out to other places for retail. Is that what would fit in light manufacturing?
I believe that when putting the definition of light manufacturing together, it should be kind of easily measurable differences, right? We can say has minimal noise impact or minimum light impact, right? I feel like that would be the obvious way, but that leaves it up to interpretation for future commissions of like what is minimal light, what is minimal noise, and can create inconsistencies. That's my only thought on that.
Well, yes, so, I mean, is this where, like a light manufacturing, where we can actually use the language about using table mounted electrical machinery or artisanal equipment?
What do they use for sail making? I have no idea.
Table mounted electrical machinery.
I imagine.
Sewing machines, right?
Well, and some
Big
vacuum,
ones.
vacuum
Well,
tables.
Right, but, you know, I mean, but you know, adding that wording to the light manufacturing definition. You know, taking it out of the manufacturing as an accessory use, but adding that, you know, because I actually thought that was what, you know, that was the wording we had been talking about for light manufacturing, was the table mounted electrical equipment or artisanal equipment, table mounted machinery or artisanal equipment was kind of generally referred to light versus, you know, what happens at EV.
Yeah, it's such a huge range.
Well, does your Rutgers book have any, is it any help here?
Trust me, when I was going through all of these, I looked in. I considered what we had already, what was in the smart code for definitions, and what's in the, there's a book of zoning regulation, of zoning definitions. That is, you go to that before you go to Black's Law Dictionary.
Right, that was it, but that's the Rutgers book, right? Like it's got a paywall, so
Yeah.
I couldn't get there, but.
I kept my mind.
I didn't want to spend $65 to find out what the definition of industrial, but.
All right, let me see what I can do. with
But
this.
I think light, you know, using the table mounted electrical machinery or artisanal equipment better fits with light.
Legal definition.
Is that,
Yeah, I mean, you know,
you have legal
The
definition?
legal definition of light manufacturing means the manufacture of products, process of which does not create and emit fumes, gases, smokes, vapors, vibrations, noise, or glare, or other factors which are regarded as nuisances, which would cause adverse effects to the users of adjacent land.
That's great.
I like that.
How much noise is made when you're
Unless-
making sales?
well,
And
would you limit a cabinet maker? Because he's emitting sawdust and sawing things.
I guess it'd be a question of nuisance to adjacent land, right? Cabinet maker, the sawdust isn't gonna go into the neighbors.
Yeah.
Just because it's a smaller amount.
Right.
wouldn't cabinet maker be accessory use?
Not necessarily.
Well, it fits in there,
Depends on where it is.
and then we can use this definition of light manufacturing.
Now, other aspects of the definition could be that the product is intended for end users rather than, you know,
Well, I mean, that's where maybe it's an accessory to retail business person services. That's, I mean, that makes sense to.
Although light make
This might light manufacturing.
make light manufacturing an accessory use only sort of thing.
Well, I mean, this may be an accessory to retail business or personal services. You know, that's, you know, that gets you to the, we're really talking about things that are, as Jason was mentioning, it's not, you know, we're selling to an end user right there, not to.
Yeah, I mean, right, the argument could be made that does the sale maker sell his own sales? Because at that point, it's a retail business and it's an accessory use to manufacture the sales.
That's, yeah, which is probably the best way.
So if we thought about light manufacturing as manufacturing that is an accessory use, whatever the legal definition is.
But what's really going on inside that building is the making of the sales.
Right.
It's really the manufacturing portion.
Is he selling them?
Yeah.
From that building?
Yeah.
And it's a retail building and accessory use, it's the sale making. Like,
I
I think we could make
I
that,
don't-
I think we could make that argument though, right?
I think that's a stretch.
was under the impression they were custom sales.
They are.
Yeah, they are.
They're made to order.
Yeah, so it's not like he's selling them with a store.
No, the exchange of money in all likelihood happens in the store. But he then delivers them. At least some of them, I don't know that he delivered all of them.
And the sale may not necessarily, the money may not be in the store. I mean, if he sends a check,
Agreed. I think that the important point is that what is going on in that building is, it's what, it is the thing that we, I think, should be regulating with the highest priority of retail and manufacturing and you know, whatever else. I think the highest priority is the actual manufacturing of the sales, because that's actually what's going on inside.
So then let's just get a definition of light manufacturing.
Okay.
Sure.
That works and.
yeah.
And whatever, you know,
And then and those elements, those speak to the impact, and that's really what our concern is. You know, what permitted use has, you know, what impact in the zone, and does it meet the intent of the zone? And I think we all agree that heavy is out, that wasn't really the intent.
right. Well, and maybe we limit the size of the, you know, light manufacturing operations too for that. Just because of where we're gonna be putting them, right, we don't want.
Well, it would be naturally limited, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Because, yeah, things.
Requirements of the zones.
Yeah,
If your nuisance language
Can you
Was
send
it-
that to me?
Yes.
was enough of a boundary for us, then you couldn't, then we could require, you know, or we could limit the installation of a, you know, a fish processing center on the second floor of a, you know, 4-story, you know, otherwise residential, you know,
yeah, based on nuisance.
based on
Yeah.
the nuisance factor.
My only concern, and it doesn't have to be something, we don't have to necessarily address it, we can leave it up, but future commission members and future town planners may think of nuisance in a different way, may consider it differently than we consider it, and would create inconsistencies where one application was less nuisance, but we put it under heavy scrutiny, and another application was a heavy nuisance, but that commission didn't put it under scrutiny. Obviously,
That's a
something,
judgment call.
yeah, obviously something we don't have to decide on, but just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, some of that falls under the fact that this, while it gets voted on and the ink will dry, there's a living document element to it where, you know, it's there to be amended as we are now, but we can't account for, I mean, you know, there could be a change in focus where, you know, the whole river is teeming with certain kind of fish and they all want to process it. And live in apartments right above where they process it, you know, might be the new industry, who knows, but.
Well, I mean, and I actually think some of the, you know, we could probably use the definition that Cameron found, and maybe some other wording that's already there in those, you know, in the accessory use and the light manufacturing to come up with a way to, you know, put some kind of limits on it that are a little more objective.
Yeah. I'm all for the objective ones. It's the,
Those are easier to defend.
yeah, and it's. And it is in fact exactly what we've been. The direction we've been trying to go in, so that it's. But there's always going to be the exception where somebody comes in and says. You know, I'm making. Musical instruments for children with, you know, the, you know, you blow in one end and shake at the other, and we have to test them out, and we have to test them at, you know, midnight for the right. Whatever. That will, those kinds of, yeah, but we need to do this special thing, is, they're always gonna happen. And then the commission makes the decision.
So Leslie, do you have enough information to polish that up?
I hope so. I certainly have enough information from, to go on to the next thing.
Okay, so the next thing I have is 4.1. And it's about the waterfront business residential district, which I thought we had defined that as, we were defining that as a zone. There's this district appears in there in a bunch of places. About the 5 corners and the waterfront,
Yes,
business residential.
it should be changed, and that's in the, yes. It should be, there should be a little.
That should,
search.
so that, yeah, so if you do a word search on district, you're
Yep.
gonna find a lot of them, and a
Yep.
lot of several of my things will go away.
What do we change?
We're changing it to zone.
I did change,
There's a
That-
note in there, 4.1 Bravo. That it's in Connecticut General Statutes recommended. 2008 Plan of Conservation Development. Hereby declared to be a village district to protect the distinctive physical site characteristics. Etc., but I don't know that. I think for consistency, we could call it the waterfront business residential zone.
yeah, this is, the village districts are a, it's a particular, it's a term of art in the Connecticut statutes that it would put in a bunch of these zones. And I would actually, I think it might be because there was no actual vision attached to this, I think it might be more responsible to take it out. And
The village district then.
the village district language. So that, I'm not saying you have to, this can go either way, but I think if you take it out, then if somebody wants to. Someone has a specific vision for something that they can really articulate. That falls under the state statute. They can come in and make that argument as opposed to. Coming back and saying, oh, well, it has to follow, you know, village district. I mean, a village district is. A little bit like an overlay zone. Where you draw boundaries within. Or across. Other zones and for a particular reason.
Yeah, that was done, I think, about to keep a handle on appearance of the, well, but it says to protect the distinctive physical site characteristics, landscape and historic structures within the district. That's new. I think that's relatively new wording. Right? Doesn't I think
It is.
you
not-
polished that?
Mm-mm. This is not mine.
Says that's
So-
recommended in the 2008 plan.
The village districts from Connecticut, from the Connecticut State Statute. The statute's from 1998, but that statute gives the commission the authority to determine things like characteristic, things like paint jobs, things like landscaping done in that district. It gives us added authority over the character designs of those districts. I think it's fine if we get rid of that, because I don't think anybody on the commission is in the business or the interest of doing things like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, I just wanna make sure I heard you correct, that you suggested that we remove it from that.
I'm. At the, I can think of very good reasons to remove it.
Okay.
Um,
I would like to offer that this really hasn't, I thought we started talking about this because it said district instead of zone. And that our real concern tonight is the consistency of language. And I don't know that we want to go down the rabbit hole of artistic license over a zone or not. I'm fine with leaving it as is, letting a future discussion about when we go to redo the WBR zone, that we can address it then. But I think we've got other work to review tonight.
Agreed.
I think doing that by zone is a good idea.
Okay.
And I would leave the word district here, actually, this is where you would want to distinguish a district from a zone,
So you want to leave this as district?
yeah.
So we got it, so, but it's labeled zone in a bunch of, in some other places. The waterfront business residential zone.
That's
Also
different,
is.
that's not, I'm saying for a village district, because it has statutory,
I got you. I'm just saying, are they the same thing? The WBR zone is also a village district? I'm just,
it probably has it has this same language in it. That, it's a good question, and it's why I wanted to
Well,
change the
there's-
regulations, because it's not clear.
So there are some places where it's called district and other places where it's called zone. And the same thing applies to Five Corners.
okay,
So it's also sometimes called
Right.
district and sometimes called zone.
well, we have. WBR.
Right, that's what I'm suggesting is we can pick one way or the other, but they ought to be harmonized. Right, one shouldn't be a district and the other a zone because they're both declared village districts.
I've just thrown something. When I think of historic district, I think of like Bank Street or Bank, where I don't think they do it there, but in other historic districts, I know when I was gonna buy a house once, we couldn't change the color of the house unless it was one of the historic. And that would be a district as opposed to other places would be a zone where you're not gonna limit it.
I really think this is a terrible left turn for us to take.
No, I'm just trying to
I'm with
say
you.
why.
I agree with all you're saying. I'm just saying, I don't think we should be talking about this right now.
Well, then it's fine.
Either we care to change district to zone or leave it district. I don't care.
We should pick one and be
We
consistent.
should change them all to zone, just to make it consistent with what the map shows, and then we know that we have the historic districts, but they're all zones. just so the
The
map looks
historic
consistent.
district is a whole other thing.
I get that, the green,
We have designed
Right.
village districts.
yeah,
That,
Right.
right,
but I think everything on the map, when you look at the map, it could be
Zones.
I think that would make it more
but
consistent.
you can have a village district
That's in a zone,
within
yes.
a zone.
Yep.
Right.
I think that I would suggest, just for legal reasons, that the village stay a district, and that our land use zones be zones.
Zones, right, so that was my original.
Right.
That was my original point, was to
Okay,
call it a zone, even though it's a village district. Okay, so,
So are gonna change everything to zone.
yeah, we're gonna harmonize on zone,
Okay.
It should be called the waterfront business.
residential zone.
Zone.
In the five
Which-
corners.
zone,
Yeah.
right, but there's a subset in those that is a
Right, yes.
village district.
Got it. Yep, we're not touching that right now.
Agreed,
Okay.
got it, good.
And then you're gonna have to add the word zones to section 4.6 header, where it says general commercial and general commercial plus residential.
Do the whole.
Yep.
4.6.
Yeah, the new one.
Primary place.
Oh, yeah, 4 points. Got it.
All right, I'm on section 4.2 E. little page 10 at the bottom. We've got a production limit on barrels of, or cases of beer. In barrels, or cases of beer, and one number of gallons of wine or spirits.
Didn't we have microbrewery as a definition with those limits?
We do, we had, no, we have microbreweries as a definition, but we changed that to the limits to whatever the state statute was.
That's what this is.
But we're,
Yeah, well,
is this the state statute, or, well, what I'm suggesting is we just change the language to say, it's, you know, we just limit it to whatever the state statute allows, right?
take out the,
Take out
the-
10,000 barrels or whatever it is and say, you know,
Consistent with state statute.
it's consistent with state statute, just like we said in the other places. Because of the changes and we're, you know,
then maybe we should just add subject to state statutes in the definition. 2.2, page 23. Facility manufacturing and or producing beer, wine, or spirits, including the packaging of such, for consumption on the premises for retail or wholesales, or a combination thereof.
well, it's, there was somewhere where we went in and we changed that. It was in the use, permitted uses, we had numbers about how much could be produced and we, so it was just to be consistent with state.
There were
statute.
two definitions that were almost identical for microbreweries.
Yeah.
And we combined them and into this one.
Okay.
I know this came up.
I don't see it now in the permitting table. It's just sale of alcohol.
That's it. So, for sure. Letter G under 4.2.e. Prior to a zoning compliance permit being issued, the applicant should demonstrate compliance with state and federal laws and regulations and have obtained all permits required thereunder.
You bring up a great point, Jason. Are bars allowed in the districts we've named?
Yeah, sale of alcohol.
But that is a package store.
You know, we had talked about,
For on-site
Oh,
consumption.
sale of alcohol for on-site consumption, found it. It's a site plan. Under use and permitting table for GCR zones. Oh, sorry, that made no sense.
It's one of the page number ones.
Yeah. Storage, accessory structure, use and critical, on that page.
let's see, with restaurant, food service, under food service.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we're assuming microbrewery would be underneath that sale of alcohol for on-site consumption.
That'd be one use. I mean, by the definition, it could be for commercial
So
sale.
that the result, I'm thinking that there's also some definitions on the parking.
That are different or labeled differently?
Not there, no, the parking ones say things like, you gotta have one parking spot for some every 1,000 square feet of production space. Plus, it's not a front of me. right now,
Yeah,
just- but plus the number of spaces required for, consumption and maybe sale and consumption, I think is what it says. So it pulls in, the square foot, parking requirements for like presumably retail. But, or consumption of, on premises, sale and consumption on premises, something. It's,
So my
It's
question is,
sale of alcohol for on-site consumption. If you have a,
so my question is, if we have a microbrewery that came with an application, we would say, Well, that's sale of alcohol for on-site consumption, and we rule it based on that.
Is it the question, it would be the question it would be a question to ask, because if what they're doing is making it, putting it in cans and selling it by the case,
That's okay,
and you can't
as a package
taste
store.
it there or, right. Then it might be, it would be the sale of consumption, sale of consumption, sale of,
Alcoholic beverages.
right,
As a package store.
yeah.
So
Okay,
the 4.2G you're looking at is five corners zone.
But the fact of the matter is, a place like Outer Lake does all of those things, right?
Yep,
It
and
manufactures, they sell for off-site consumption and they sell for on-site consumption.
in our GC zone list of definitions and principal uses permitted, we have the smaller microbrew definition. As a principal or accessory use to a restaurant or drinking establishment, provided that prior to the issuance of a zone, they're in compliance in writing with state and federal laws. So, perfect. So we're covered in GC. And by our use permitting table. The more expanded requirements are in Five Corners district. That is where we have, you know, area devoted to production shall not exceed 25% of the gross floor area. So again, I think that we can revisit the Five Corners district zone when we get there. But it's not germane to our,
Okay, so we don't want to just leave it as it is.
well,
Or-
all I'm saying is, I think that what we have in the section that is germane to GC and GCRs is what we intended.
Okay, and we're not, we're gonna worry about it in five colors for now, because we're gonna come back on something.
Right.
Okay, I'm done.
It's clear that there are some differences between the zones. Definition doesn't need to include all that. When we go fix the zones, we can decide whether or not we want to true up all that language and make it the same every year, or if we want to stick with.
We're in a transitional period.
Yeah, that works. Anybody got anything? Should we keep going? All right, so I'm at 4.5.E dimensional standards in the TC zone. So this is the technology zone, right? The technology campus zone. We've got a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, once more, Paul.
I'm sorry, it's 4.5.E dimensional standards. It's the bottom of the page is what it's labeled 20.
4.5.E,
4.5.E, yes,
that's gonna be in the TC zone.
TC zone, right. So it's the dimensional standards for the TC zone, and it has a minimum lot area of 80,000 square feet. Which seems large.
So
I didn't think of any of that.
Okay, but it just.
I-
Go ahead.
So I don't have a specific thought on that, just something I've noticed right now. Is that it looks like what we've done for the use table is headed as technology campus zone.
That's a header that's,
So I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page as that,
Yeah.
so that we understand when we're looking at this, right?
Right. Yeah, no, so this is nothing to do with the GC and the.
So let's leave this
All right,
the way that
Just
it
leave it.
is.
Okay, Yep. no, yeah, because it's not gonna come up to them. It won't come up in interest. Okay,
yeah, your left page have the general commercial, the right pages are headed different.
Yeah, I didn't notice that when I first read through. Yeah. But now it's better.
Times I changed them,
I don't know, I'm just messing with you at this point.
thank you.
all right, so the next page. It says future development, and we're talking about
Yeah.
GCR. Primary policies to be enabled and encouraged. Future development in neighborhoods and regional centers shall be compact, pedestrian, and mixed use. So shall be means it must be. mixed
It
use.
doesn't mean the building has to, it means the,
Okay, the neighborhood,
yes,
okay, but, so, because we don't wanna. We don't do a Minneapolis thing here and force people to build mixed use buildings if that's not economically viable.
correct.
Correct? If they wanna just build just multifamily buildings, they're fine.
That's fine. And the other thing that I think that we ought to be clear about is that mixed use does not mean that it is mixed, that the building has to be mixed use. It means like you could have an apartment building in the front and a
Restaurant next door.
and a restaurant next door. Or
But
in the
if you
back,
say shall, then you can't just build a residential building on
if
top.
it's on the same parcel, you can.
I'm saying the parcel in the zone, they only want to build apartments. If you say shall, it must be mixed use.
Understood. You're right.
So I think the word shall should be replaced with should.
May or something,
Should, like the next.
or
sentence,
encouraged or something like that.
Something like that.
The rest of the sentences say should.
Okay. Yeah, they should. But we don't wanna force it. I don't think.
Should be compact. Okay, got it.
Um. Yeah, and the other thing I saw there was there's a statement there on that statement 3 there about networks of streets. I don't want to scare anybody. Because there's no parcel there big enough for us to have a network of streets, is there? I mean,
Probably not, but the connection. How,
why don't we just say streets? Should be designed to do that.
Well, I understand that the interconnected piece is ties to the reduce the length of automobile trips.
Right.
I just don't know how much of that street design stuff we're really gonna have an influence.
Well,
where we can have an influence, and I think we should retain the ability to do this, is really what, on the private property portion, not the public roadway. To the extent that we can make those driveways into the backs of parcels appear as and function as narrower roadways or alleys, not the crappy alleys with the garbage cans and the
Sure.
crap all over it, but the nice kind. I
Narrower
think we
means
want to
slower.
be we want to be able to control it because we want those areas also to be walkable, not just.
and I'm fine with that, I just, so, I mean, you know, why don't we just say, you know,
We could just say.
private streets should be designed, right? And just take out.
Yep.
Interconnected networks.
Yep.
It implies something.
Something with that's,
Yeah.
you know,
We don't know
with
if
it's
it's
not
ready.
gonna happen. It's unlikely to happen.
Okay.
There's the thing about transit stops, but my guess is the building might be going before the transit stop. But those are all shoulds, so. We've got on 4.6.c, the principal uses. Under light manufacturing, we again, we stick cell making in there, even though it's in the definition. But we should either be in the definition or here.
Take it out here.
Or should we take it out in the definition to make it? I don't know, whatever you think is best, but one or the other. No. No, the headers are. Next page. One of the things that we're, a principal use that's not allowed by, on this list is multifamily residential and mixed-use residential.
I'm sorry, say that again?
On this principal use is permitted by site plan approval under 4.6.c,
Yep.
right, which is the GCR zone. Multifamily residential and mixed-use residential is not listed. Which are the things we're trying to encourage.
I'm so sorry, can you say where you are?
It's an error because our use table says site plan for all the zones.
Right, but it's not, it's not in the list of. So I'm on,
6.C,
I'm 4.6.c,
okay, what am I adding?
and that,
Does it need to be added? If it's in the use table, I mean, does it need to be articulated here? As in, if it's not articulated in numbers 1 through 14 echo, it doesn't, it's not permitted?
that's my, I guess that's my question.
Yeah,
You know, because we've got like dry cleaning, and laundry and all, there's a laundry list of stuff that's included.
including
Yeah.
laundry.
You know, and so from my perspective. I guess I thought we should have the multifamily residential and the mixed use residential. On the list, because that's what we're hoping that we'll get more of.
I'm with you. Well, I guess the way I look at that, when you turn to the permitting table, first thing you see is mixed use residential by site plan, multifamily by site plan.
But I'm just.
It's there, and maybe I think that the list here, principal uses, by site plan and by special permit. There's gonna be overlap between the 4.6.c list, B list, and what's in the table. In many cases, it'll be duplicates. The table's the graphic version, the list is a list. I don't know that they all need to be in both places as long as you can find what you're looking for.
I think I'm a fan of consistency, so I think that it's listed as allowed should match what's in the graph, right? Because the graph theoretically goes into deeper, it specifies special permit and things like that, while the list is just the itemized list of everything that's allowed.
Well, the itemized list of site plan, itemized list of
Yeah.
special permit. And we did all the work to make the tables. Do we just stick with the tables and get rid of the lists?
I can cross-check the uses that are in the lists against the table, make sure they're all there.
Okay.
And then take out the lists and leave the table.
Yeah, I prefer just the table for,
The table's got more detail. in it,
yeah.
But they should be consistent.
If we do have a list and a table, they should be consistent, they should match, but if we are getting rid of one, we should keep the table.
Keep the table in the right list and just for the principal uses, just make that the. Put that on the top of the table.
All right, here's the only,
Oh,
the only caveat to that, looking at the list now.
Yeah.
Is that there is some expanded language in the list. That is helpful maybe. That either we. Cross-check and make the list match the table so you have both. Or you. For example, boatyard for building, storing, blah, blah, blah. List 4.6 point delta. You don't get all that in the table. Yeah. I agree with you, Cameron. I think that
Well, if we have both, the language has to match either way.
I'm gonna try and make the table match the list.
Mhm.
And then we can take a look at it and see whether we agree that we can get rid of the list.
The only issue I have with getting rid of the list it's that, like Jason said, it is much more detailed in regard to what's allowed. One, number 19 is halfway houses. We don't have halfway houses in this street.
There's
So,
a
I thought we
reason
did.
that we don't have halfway houses listed. They actually have to be treated the same as residential. Single family residential.
if we were to put all of these in the list on the table,
The list would go on forever.
exactly.
Let me see what I can do.
I'm fine with having both so long as they match, at least, you know, intuitively they match to where maybe they don't have exact language, but you read it and you understand that. matches
And in a
that.
perfect world, I think that would be fine. I actually think I don't like to see the duplication. I don't like seeing things listed twice in different places because you invariably don't change one.
You run into questions like this.
Yes, exactly like.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing is. The graph shows you the comparison between the zones. You know, in some cases, one zone to the other, there's a difference in the permitting structure. I think, I'd be okay with, you just make sure that, like Cameron said, intuitively, most of the major things that are in the table are also in the list. Major things being the residential. If the list has a little more detail, and it's better to keep that detail in the list, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, my thought was just that since multifamily and mixed use residential are the things we're trying to encourage the probably, yeah.
The other way of thinking about this, folks, is, so this is for all 5 of these zones. And principal use is permitted by site plan approval isn't true for all 5 zones in the list. You have to go to the chart
Yeah.
to be able to know which zone
Yeah.
that applies to.
So the rest of my suggestion for that was to say. Refer to section 4.6 F, use and permitting table for.
Yeah.
GC and GCR zones.
I mean, even if you put that before the list, you know, additional information can be found
Yeah.
on these pages or whatever.
Something, but just refer people.
Yeah.
What something there to refer people to.
Yeah.
And that it can be, when you put that in there, that it can be on the list, you know, more than once, which is why you need to check.
Right.
Because they'll find it under permit, like site approval.
Yep.
And go with that, and then you go back and say, no, it doesn't fit in.
Right. But if you say refer to the list, as detailed in the list. I'm on the permitting table. And I'm at, it's labeled as page 1, but the top of the page starts with outpatient facilities, city office.
Are we still in 4.6?
Yes.
We are, yes, we're still in 4. Mine says 4.5.
Well, that's the header.
Right.
Yeah. So under retail, we say we've got less than 1,500 to 10,000, and then 10,000 to 15,000. None of the other space limitations in the upper limit.
It just says greater than 10,000.
They just say greater than 10,000. Was there a reason we wanted to limit retail to less than 15,000? I mean,
Well, didn't we discuss the idea that we did kind of want to cap retail because we didn't want, with the goal being, you know, mixed use with residential, that we didn't want to take the roller rink property and turn it into a mall.
right, you don't wanna, so that was, I guess, I don't recall that discussion, but I'm asking that.
I think the same argument can be made then for place of public assembly, right? If if we're putting a cap on retail space because we don't want something like a mall, we should put a cap on place of public assembly as well. But we already have caps on space, and I don't think there's. I don't know. if I remember correctly, for what happened, I believe retail was the first thing we had that broke it down by space.
Right,
And we made everything else ourselves broken down, and we just didn't specify when we were copying what retail had said. That's how I remember it being. I don't remember a specific conversation about retail.
I don't remember capping at 10 to 15, but
what,
When we take the equal sign out, 15.
Well, when we copied, we didn't take retail, we took business and professional. So that's why it's greater than 10,000.
no, okay.
but retail is less than or equal to 15, nobody else, none of the other ones are limited
Yeah.
in size.
Yeah.
But I'm not arguing that it didn't make sense to do it, I don't remember a discussion about
I don't think
limiting it.
we didn't have one.
So that's why I'm raising it, is, should we limit it? And I'm perfectly happy to agree to limit it to 15, less than 15,000, so you don't end up with a big box store. Right, because the way it's currently zoned, that's one of the things. It's really workable for it.
10,000 is CVS or your, you know, your
Which is,
mid-size,
I do remember that discussion.
it's your mid-size retail. But I'm thinking about it like a full grocery store.
Could be
You're
bigger than
talking more
that.
like 40,000, aren't you?
Yeah,
Could
it's
be.
check, but it could, yeah, I'm sure Big Y could fit at least 4 CVS's.
But you'd have to. You'd have
I
to
don't
have the
know where the
space,
land
you have the
is.
parking, you know, the land to do 40,000. I just. How can it go awry if we just take the upper limit off? 15,000 seems kind of.
I agree, everything else is by special, all the other above 10,000 square feet is also by special permit. I think it just allows it to keep consistent.
Does that give us enough, commission, planning, conservation, development, intent, oversight? If we just take the upper limit off of retail and let it kind of work out organically?
What do you think, Leslie? Think that's safe approach, or would you recommend sticking with the limit? On the upper end,
The only site where I really think it could happen would be where the roller rink goes.
or unless somebody came in and.
And
redid that
assembled
whole-
a lot of land.
Well, or redid that whole shopping center and
And with the,
where,
Multiple stories,
where other light is. Right?
That's what I mean.
That's Strip Plaza.
Right.
Yeah, anywhere on that.
'Cause-
That's the only place that's big enough.
Yeah.
And I think that, if it's the worst thing that happens, I'm not really a big fan of zoning for the worst thing, but,
So you think we're safe taking the 15,000? Want to sleep on it?
if you have to think about it that much. I'm not comfortable taking it out tonight.
Yeah, I think the safest play would be to keep it in. But I think if we keep it in, we could limit the other ones as well.
Well,
Because
it's
what's
true, because we're trying to get done size.
I mean, one thing that you want to avoid is having an empty big building.
Right.
Whether it's a single story, whether it's the first floor or a whole, multi-story building.
My understanding is developers don't really want to build the first floor retail, right? Because they can't rent it.
For some of them, it's considered to be what they call a
Loss
loss leader. That's true, and then you've got, But you also can, if you have smaller spaces within that, if they're divided up as opposed to, one big floor, you can have, you sort of have multiple rotating vacancies, which is not necessarily a bad thing because people do come to see what's new. But it's not ideal.
All right, well, I
So
mean,
the worry, the concern then is we change the regs so that, a 6-story building could be built on the residence property. And a retailer wants to build a 6-story apartment store. And if we just say greater than 10,000 special permit, no limit, we don't have enough latitude in the special permit to say that's not what we intended there.
If we don't intend something to be there, we should just zone, we should write what we
Yeah.
intend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
well, that's, yeah, so that's the.
But by the same token,
People come in with ideas that we've never heard of and
Well-
it's been one of the downfalls of the existing regulations is that then they come in with these hyper specific definitions of what they want to do. Because they're looking to reduce their amount of time before the commission get going.
I don't know if it's a real concern or not, but I guess the only worry would be if you had mixed use, you had residential on the top floors and commercial down below, and then for some reason you couldn't fill the residential space, then you couldn't fill it with commercial space because it would exceed 15,000 square feet. That would be the only worry. I don't know that that's a real concern. So maybe it's fine, but I guess what we have to do is go back and look at the other places where we have an upper limit. And is it appropriate to cap those? Would it be wrong to cap those? And if not, then let's just make it consistent. Where we have those limits by space.
Well, I think if we are, I do think that if we should cap stores, we should cap everything, right? Because functionally, what would be the difference between a
exactly.
16,000 square foot store versus a 16,000 square foot church, you know? You're gonna take up the same amount of parking, you're gonna take up the same amount of space.
They actually may not.
Two floors of medical office and 2 floors of residential above. We might be tying hands.
Let me take a look at it.
Would that not be two different uses though, right? So if you have commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor, wouldn't they be two different square footage uses? So like the commercial could be up to 15,000 square foot and then the residential could be up to 15,000 square foot. We wouldn't add those together, right? I just want to make sure I got that correct.
Yeah,
Is that per building or per?
It's per use, is my understanding.
but if you have an acre and a half lot. And you came up with a 100 by 100 foot building, that's 10,000 square feet per floor.
Mhm.
2 floors of it. If you wanted, if the developer said, we've got medical, offices that could go in 2 floors of it and apartments above. Well, we've just limited them to a floor and a half where the medical office is. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to think of,
Do we want to, yeah, so do we want to discourage them?
Especially when I think I remember ED was going to, or maybe they did. The bank, I'll make it quick.
Mhm.
The bank right above in 5 corners. They wanted to turn that into doctor's offices, a pharmacy, and that building wasn't tall enough. So, that would inhibit, that'd be a great place to have a doctor's office with a pharmacy down below and who knows what else. I really hate to limit it.
I'm okay with taking the limit off.
of retail.
Retail, I'm not so sure.
Retail is the
I
only one
don't
with a
think you're
limit.
gonna get it. I don't think that you're gonna get it.
Well, I mean,
I
I
just,
think
the
there's
only,
that one site. that
Yeah, that's
It's
what
already
we're,
there.
we're worried about an application that we can't say no to because
We can limit it.
we didn't put the right boundary in.
I mean, I'm okay with limiting just retail, right, and allowing it in other, but we also have to think of, okay, we didn't want a box store in the roller rink, and so now we have.
Yeah.
20,000 square feet of medical offices going in there, we can't stop that either, and that's gonna be. Probably similar parking.
the other thing to remember is that whatever goes in is going to go out at some point, and so we wanna have buildings that can where people don't have to take down the building to put in what they want.
I don't,
The danger is having something
I don't
so
look that
big
way.
that you can't fill it. And the schools that have been decommissioned as schools are a good example of that, because they have very specific sites within the building, like a gymnasium or, and so they can be reused, but it does take a special developer to be able to do that.
So. Should we have something less arbitrary than 15,000 square feet? Do you think that might be part of the issue, is that 15,000 square feet seems so arbitrary? That it's limiting, it would be limiting to have 15,000 square feet? Like, what, my question is, at what point would it be like, well, that's too big, you know? Like, if 15,000 square feet is not to us too big, at what point would we say that's too big? That should be, and that should be the limit, and that should be a limit theoretically universally.
Well, the other thing you have is the applicant always has the ability to come in and say, I want to do this project, this is what it is, and I need 5,000 more square feet, or I need 15,000 square feet more. And they make their, I mean, that does happen with some frequency. That
What would we have to do in that? Do we have the power to grant them that variance,
they
basically?
would come in with an application to change the zoning regulations
So I,
to
They'd be
allow
applying
it
for a
to be.
text amendment.
Yeah.
Essentially, right.
I thought that was one of the goals we were trying to avoid with this, because that's
We are,
happened
but
so
you're
frequently.
always gonna have that come in.
Well,
Because somebody is going to invent something, some use
Mhm.
that we don't have. And so I am, generally speaking, I'm totally with you in terms of consistency. But there is a process that anyone can go through to change what exists, and that's a good thing.
yeah, no, I agree. So I guess my thought for that would be, then we should limit it, because if someone comes in with this fantastic idea above 15,000 square feet, we have a chance to slow the brakes on what they're doing and make sure that it's actually consistent with what we want. It would grant us more, a greater ability to put it under scrutiny than if we don't have a cap on it, because then we don't get to put it under that level of scrutiny that we could if we don't cap it. So I guess,
I move that we apply the same 10 to 15,000 language anywhere where we have space-based limits. That way we have 10 to 15,000 everywhere. It's all special permit. We have the ability to allow greater use than that via the permitting process.
I agree.
I'm good with that.
And then,
So. you think- No, it's all right.
when Leslie says things move out, I can see the retail moving out. Because you've got the strip mall
sure,
and they're all empty. But I think a medical office, and using the example of the EV use of the bank, and when I think of a medical office, I know there's a huge need in the area for more medical facilities because of the influx of people. When I look at the surgical center, medical office that they put in across from BJ's, that thing's just growing. And I don't ever see those guys moving out of it. So I see less of a risk with medical
Yeah,
as opposed to retail.
I agree. My question would be, is that like a huge medical facility, would that be the type of thing that we want in a mixed use? Heavy walking area, you know? We don't really want, you know, these are a lot of businesses and housing. The character that we're aiming for is something that people will go to walk around, go to the shop, leave their house to walk to. I don't know if a huge medical office facility, despite its need, would fit the zones that we're looking at here. Maybe other zones in the city, I'm certain, like the technology district area, I'm certain it would fit in that area. My only thought is those types of buildings, those office types of buildings might not fit the character that we're going with within the GCR zones.
I think it's a mistake to look at these all as equivalent. For instance, looking at business and personal services. That use is generally speaking, you're not going to have a 4-story building with all accountants. Nothing against accountants, but it's not, that's not generally what you're gonna get. But if you have an accountant and a hair salon and a nail salon and a tailor, those are the kinds of things that can rotate over time, and you're not losing a lot of retail space or a lot of service space as one goes out and another comes in.
But again, we're talking about blank slate properties, brand new developments. Is there any harm in putting a 15,000 square foot cap on those uses right now? And then we see what happens, see what comes. And deal with, oh, that's a really good idea. And I see how you decided to use the bottom floor of 4 of these buildings, which happen to fit on 2-acre lot. And I guess that does get you 25,000 square feet. And no, we don't have a problem with that. And we do a text amendment. You know what I mean?
I think if we make the argument that it's unlikely to happen, why not limit it anyway? Right, I also think people would look at it in better faith if we limit it.
Or if our stated goal is make opportunity for housing.
Yes.
I don't think there's a problem with us putting 15,000 square foot cap on all these non-housing uses. With the option to exercise.
You can always.
Yeah.
You can always come back and file text.
Okay, so under office, we're limiting to 15.
Anywhere where you have 1,500,
I
15 to
just want to
10,000.
go through that.
Sure.
Civic.
Yep.
We're doing
Yep.
business personal.
Yep.
Okay. That's it.
Is that it?
Thank you. I just didn't want to say all of them and then find out, oh, we didn't realize that was in there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
2 pages on. I've got indoor storage and we've got it all X'd out, correct? And that would be as a. In the bottom of the page. Yep. It's, so in that, because where we define this, that's as a primary use. Correct? So if someone came along and wanted to use, wanted to have indoor storage as an accessory use based on something else they were doing, they'd still be allowed to do that, correct?
As an accessory use,
That's an accessory use, right?
I agree.
That makes, so as long as I'm understanding that correctly, then
Same thing with,
Self-storage on the.
same thing with self-storage
storage is that you have,
as a primary use, I agree.
okay, all right, that's fine,
So we're okay.
we're
as
okay,
it
I mean,
is?
it's just, as long as it would be acceptable as an accessory use, because, somebody might wanna put something in there that's got storage.
Yep, you could have, accessory use, self-storage for the residents that live above. Sort of thing.
Okay. We've we've got heavy manufacturing on the next page, which we don't have a definition of. No, we have light manufacturing and manufacturing.
So should we change heavy manufacturing in this to just manufacturing? If we're keeping the manufacturing definition that we currently have?
I think so, we're just gonna, you know.
Well,
Unless-
yeah.
Something with greater intensity than light manufacturing,
Right,
where we left off.
I think that's a great definition. And so we just remove the heavy part of heavy manufacturing on this, right?
Well, I was thinking the other way. You have 3 definition entries in our, in our definition section. Light and then a couple of,
Well, the 2 manufacturing definitions, one's accessory and one's primary.
Yeah. so I thought we were gonna use. We're gonna remove the accessory and primary bit. And then just have 2 entries, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. Light is better defined, with the ways you talked about. And then heavy is what's not light. And then in our use table, heavy is not allowed and light is,
and the other thing we have in our use table was light manufacturing, primary and accessory. So I'm actually wondering if we meant to have
the accessory definition.
the definitions of light manufacturing were supposed to be primary and accessory. I don't,
So I think that's actually something that could be gone over at your guys' talk about like formatting stuff, because there are other examples in this, right? Looking at the boating, beach and marinas, right? Boat club, beach club and marina primary and accessory use are the exact same. They could be combined into one column there. But I think that if we did have 2 different definitions for light manufacturing, a primary definition and an accessory definition, I don't know if they'd be different enough from each other to justify a brand new definition, if that makes sense.
There's a section in the definitions that it's on the page after page 24, not sure what it is. Principal versus accessory related terms.
Okay. Yep.
it's not.
Well, but then again, you have.
Well, I mean, I guess this was just, maybe this was just a shortcut to say you could use it for primary and accessory use. Or manufacturing would be acceptable either way. Instead of having 2, instead of having a line for light manufacturing primary and light manufacturing accessory, right? Maybe that's.
And it's special permit anyway,
Right,
so
so yeah, so it's not, yeah, plus, if you can burn any more, it's also that. What's everybody doing? I got the 9. What else? I got the zone versus district thing.
The only thing added here was creating an open space zone rather than in addition to the existing recreational open space. We have the recreational open space that's, the parks and ball fields and stuff. We added the open space zone to cover that little area across North Street from the gas station where the wetlands properties are. It would literally cover those 2 properties.
Yeah, so this is why,
Basically, you can't do it.
why F.
Yeah. The only permitted use is approved maintenance. Which they do.
That's fine, that's the way we thought about that area anyway. That's OS instead of ROS, correct?
Yep.
Got it. Anybody else have anything in 5?
Did the coastal area management overlay zone exist before?
Yeah.
Okay, for flood protection over.
All of that stuff is. clear.
That's pretty much what the page was, it?
Yeah, that is, I did not change a single thing. It's most of it comes from stuff.
So I have a question on 6.12.
Wait, 1 second,
I'm sorry.
going back to 5.4 is the mud zone.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I did not do anything with this
yeah,
because,
yeah, you think it needs to be extensively
Nuts.
rewritten.
but I'm not.
We're not gonna wait until that reading.
I just wanted to make that clear. I also have had conversations with one person who is thinking about using these mud regulations to reduce development. Whether that would ever really happen or not, I don't know. I don't believe anything until I see an application on my desk. So,
It's probably not gonna be a 5 pointers.
no,
At least not on the last parcel, because those have all been read.
Yeah.
6.12. Telecommunication facilities, but it's all about towers and antennas.
it is
Right? I mean, it's,
because siting council has jurisdiction over everything.
you know,
6.1.
6.5.
Oh, 6.5.
Well, okay.
so it's just, I mean, so the section title is telecommunication facilities, but it's just towers and antennas. Right? Didn't have anything about it, any other facilities other than antennas. Tower,
Right.
antenna, satellite dish.
Did not do anything with this.
Yeah, no, I understand, I'm just, while we're cleaning it up. We don't have to do this, we can just leave it, but would it make sense at some point to retitle this section? Telecommunication towers and antennas. Because we have a definition of telecommunication facilities. Right, that we added. Thinking about, you know, the couple of like niches.
Sure.
But none of this has anything to do with it.
I'm happy to turn it to towers and antennas.
I mean, it's a small thing.
Well, let's separate some. Telecommunication facilities used to only involve towers.
Yeah. Um, So,
I want you to know, I'm going to be retiring right before we decide to redo that particular section.
which section is that?
The towers and
Oh, the
antennas.
what section?
Imagine anything before.
I mean, the one section would drive you out.
Yeah.
I'd rather do the mud section and fix that because I know how broken that is.
That's fixable.
Well. Yeah.
Anybody else got anything in section 6? Um. 7, the standards. We've got 7.1.d number of parking spaces and standards. And I'm at number 6, hospitality uses. And for food and beverage, we've got 12 spaces required for 1,000 square feet. In other places, we have like 3 spaces required. So. Yeah, this just seems high, and it's not consistent. I mean, I know I think we were talking about it, the other place we're talking about is
It is high.
I mean, it came right out of the existing regs, but it.
Yep.
Doesn't make sense. I agree. What does make sense?
Well. gonna make a walkable area. Walkable is on one side of the spectrum and happy hour is the other side of the spectrum.
Well, okay, we already have restrictions about the storefront, you know, the spacing from the street and building a building. So you're not talking about a fast food restaurant parking lot in front, right off the street.
Yep.
Where we've already regulated that out.
Yep.
At least in the zones that we're talking about.
Yes,
Obviously, this-
right.
you know, but, so. Does it matter? Does it matter? Because it says see section 7.2 for GC and GCR.
Does bulk pasta match the definition? Bulk pasta is not in the GCR, so we have to follow these.
Pre-existing non-conforming, and that's
Okay.
the only reason it's still there.
Okay,
But I
But
mean,
if it were sold,
No.
section 7.2 for GC, GCR, 7.2 says restaurants, bars, fraternal, 12 spaces per 1,000 feet. A patron for it.
I don't think we have to worry much about what's written in 7.1 standards.
Not today, we don't. I don't think so.
I would agree.
So in an
Wait.
effort to sort of do GCR, GC and GCR stuff, and keep everything else the same.
Mhm.
This should be done to what is existing now,
Which
It's
is,
7.1.
and yes.
So why we haven't broken out for GC and GC?
Because we did change.
well, you know, but still, having a general commercial and GCR right next to each other with different parking requirements.
Just trying to understand what you just said, because you said they should
Did I
match.
actually finish a sentence?
No, we didn't like.
No, did I? No, it's not.
I thought you said they should match.
They, well,
You
they
said
actually.
they don't. You said I don't because we made them not match.
No, but they do.
In
The,
GCR, we also have 12?
Seven B, so 7.2B. Restaurant, bars, fraternal organizations and lodges, 12 spaces per thousand.
My. I don't know, my only theory, well, yeah, my only thought was maybe it's a typo and it was supposed to be 2. Because all other places seem closer to 2 or 1.
Well, part of it is because that bars and pretty much drives themselves, right?
I think we should change it from 12.
What do you think we should change it to? It doesn't make sense. What does form code say?
I'm just thinking about
Form code
where I can
requires-
very quickly put my hands on it.
Well, you know, you don't have.
I'll check.
That's good, that's fine. Okay.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
For the same section, the 7.2B on the prior page, the retail / motor vehicle service. But this seems so fine tuned and so specific for so many random things.
Mhm.
Could we not streamline this at all? I don't know if we've ever talked about that section before. But I mean, what is so similar between machinery and garden supplies that they need to be included in the same section for parking? That couldn't be included for motor sales, motor vehicle sales, or other retail services establishments. It's under number 4 for retail and motor vehicle service.
sale or rental. And it would take out all the rest.
What's that?
Yeah, I mean, they could probably all match, and you don't have to specify each one of them individually.
We only allow
Carpets, furniture,
motor vehicle sale in the GC because of an existing use. And it's by special permit. So,
And we don't actually have to continue allowing that. We make, now the downside of that, and I try not to do this, is to, it would make it a pre-existing non-conforming, and that means that it gets harder to make, to get financing.
we should keep that in for special permit, so we don't screw them over. So we keep them so they're not conforming. So we should keep that by special permit. I only bring this up, right, because it's, for the parking specifically, it seems so specific.
Yeah.
That like, why does electrical and HVAC sales get 2 spaces, but other places get 4 spaces?
I do not disagree.
good catch.
So you just wanna have one, retail sales and service establishments.
Well, yes, I'd like something that makes sense, but I think that makes sense, unless someone has a different opinion to that.
Yeah,
Cause I get that other retail places, different retail would theoretically require different parking intensities. But I don't know how much we want to fine comb that when we could.
We have the same differentiation as the 7.1B
Yes, I know,
zone,
yeah,
so we'll have to come back to that, but.
well, we're doing this zone now, so I think if we change it to this zone now,
I
then
agree,
that way when we come back to that zone, we already have a template made here and now.
100% agree.
and it's, you know,
I'm just saying this is where it came from.
Yeah, I'm saying we're just copying. and
If
pasting.
we just take out A, that whole row. Change B to A. Take out other and just leave retail sales and service establishments, and then put 2 to 4 spaces.
Well, which is a 2 to 4, 2 or 4.
Put
Yeah.
2 to 4 at the discretion of the commission.
I don't like discretion of the commission just because future commissions will rule differently than past commissions,
But the
but
difference between 2 and 4 is pretty constrained.
okay.
2.024. Becomes A.
Are we gonna keep C then, the motor vehicle sales, although we don't allow motor vehicle sales in the zone?
We do
Is it called
In GC.
sales or is it called something
vehicle
else?
dealership, we allow that in GC. But I don't know that you need to,
Does that place fit the definition of a dealership? I thought it was a,
I think it's an option,
okay, sure,
but I don't think you need to give it its own line.
allow it to fit under retail services, okay. Is that,
Somebody tell me what to write.
Just get rid of C
Okay,
That's fine.
and do what you were gonna do with A and B.
so B's gonna go away. No, A's
Okay,
going
yeah.
away
A's
and
going
B is
away.
turning into A, into B.
Word
into
others
A.
and
B turns into A. Got it.
and we wanna still
You can
keep
get rid of
automotive services different, is that correct?
Huh?
Automotive services, D stays different.
D?
D. You are in 7.1B. We are looking at 7.2B. Which we are gonna make the shining example of parking regulations. And we will then apply more broadly to the other zones when we get there,
if we do.
just after.
I might be retired by then.
Well, the way we're going. I would take motor vehicle service out of the retail / motor vehicle service and
Yeah.
leave number 4.
Small retail.
Please,
Now that we're in the right chart.
Just give it a moment.
Just leaving it.
So,
retail?
under number 4, it says retail / motor vehicle service.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of motor vehicle service out of the title,
Okay,
and then we're gonna get rid of A and get rid of C. And B will become A and the only thing in that section,
Without the word other, it'll just be retail sales and service
With four.
establishments.
2 to 4.
Yeah,
It'll say 2 to 4 parking spaces.
at the discretion.
at discretion.
I guess that should be specified because nowhere else do we have a range of parking spaces. My other thing on this graph. Actually, I need to confirm that before I say it, so I think that.
So do we know what we're doing with, the restaurants and
Leslie's gonna,
the.
she's gonna do some research and, you know, reasonable.
So. It's my understanding on the next page, under food service, that we had deleted outdoor cafe from the uses and permitted because. We had just deleted it from the uses and permitted, so my suggestion would be to delete it from this parking as well. Just because we don't have outdoor cafe listed anywhere else.
I don't know, we meant.
We.
Well,
deleted it Because there was no, we
It's
never
no-
done a restaurant.
It's no different from a restaurant that has outdoor seating, and we don't want someone to build a restaurant, come to us with outdoor seating and say, well, it's an outdoor cafe, so it's permitted by use, and I can put 0 parking spaces in.
We have restaurant indoor / outdoor.
Yeah, I thought that made more sense,
Yep, I agree.
so. My only thought would be to delete outdoor cafe from the food service section.
You might wanna just add indoor restaurant.
Are we deleting it or are we adding indoor?
Do we have an indoor restaurant? Where would that be under? It's not under food services. Oh, I guess restaurant bars, never mind.
I think that we could probably just leave restaurant.
Mhm.
And you know, let that apply whether they,
Indoor or outdoor.
whether they have indoor
Yeah,
or outdoor.
I agree.
Makes sense.
I think we should keep the takeout food service catering facility separate though. Because a business like that would require less intense parking.
Let's go back to. I put down indoor / outdoor cafe, because that agrees to the other one. Did you say get rid of it and just have restaurant, bars and organizations?
I didn't say get rid of it, but I think we did, that we don't need to specify outdoor cafe because. When we say restaurant, we aren't just discriminating between indoor and outdoor.
So C turns into B
Yes,
and B goes away, not in that order.
So,
Whichever way you want to do it.
under restaurant, should I put / indoor outdoor?
No, we're just gonna say
Restaurant,
restaurant.
okay.
Go ahead.
I just have a quick question for you, Paul, actually.
Sure.
For your, I know you took notes on like formatting and stuff, but did you notice that under office, there's no A under office, it just goes directly to B? On the other page. I just want to make sure.
I did not,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh.
That wasn't on my list.
I just noticed it.
A couple places I noticed where, not in this table, but where there's a heading. You know, it's like, you know, say Roman numeral 1 and then right into 1, 2, 3. And then the next one is 1 and then right into ABC. Just, you know, so.
When we did this last time, I went through it and said, it should be, and you just took my book. So, apparently he didn't look at it.
On the same page as the food service. Manufacturing and industrial, I think we should just take out an industrial.
Sure.
Both places, please.
Because industrial spend its own. It's a.
I have a question about this. It's a lot of question.
I'm listening.
Oh, sorry. Under manufacturing as an accessory use, we have this specific thing for parking under accessory use. Would that be on top of the primary use? So if the primary use was retail, and so they need 4 spaces for retail, would the accessory use be on top of the primary use requirements? Which
So
parking,
you would go to the shared,
oh gosh, okay.
The fuzzy math chart.
I was scared that was the answer, but okay.
that's what you do.
Okay, thank you.
And if it's 3 different uses. If you have retail as the primary and then. Accessory use A, B, and C. You take the 2 highest. It's the only thing I know. It's been worked out. Yeah,
She loves that chart.
do.
Do we need, do we need entries for accessory on primary for manufacturing establishments?
Accessories, like, remember?
Well, they're, yeah, because they're the same.
Are we making a change in something?
Yeah, deleting the B primary use and just making A accessory and primary use manufacturing.
Yeah, it's just silly to have 2 entries that say the same thing. Manufacturing, primary and accessory.
They're both at the same requirement. You okay with that level?
Now, when you have things that you think you might, like, not be able to skip by me, that you really want, now'd be a really good time.
Yeah.
Just,
It's after 9.
yeah,
You can get in there. This is where you put the pork barrel stuff in there.
that's right. And this is how the laws get made. The sausage.
Everybody, anything else on the?
While I'm thinking about it. Because of the mess that I helped make about putting the 15,000 square foot cap on all those things. If you go to page 27.2 Charlie, parking calculations, fuzzy math page, a couple pages to your right.
Yep.
The example of number 1, GC and GCR now can't say 20,000 square feet of office because we're not allowed that. See, so. I can read you the math for 15,000 square feet of office.
All right, anything else on, the ones math page is?
I blacked out when I got to this page, so no.
And they did mixing.
Okay, so on to 7.2.E. E is an Edward,
Location of parking.
patient of parking. 6,
On the 7.2 delta, the page before that,
yep,
the roadway summary, I'm not sure I understand where the dots for allowed and the missing dots are. Is it like NA?
The blank is NA.
not allowed or not
Yeah,
applicable.
Is, We could put NA in the blank boxes.
It's just kind of funny that,
This is so interesting. Like architects and planners look at this and we know exactly what this means
yeah,
and.
so if you put NA, then you don't need the, I don't know. It's just weird, you have three spaces that don't meet the allowed.
Didn't seem random.
There must have been a reason we chose those, right? I remember this conversation. I just don't,
Where's Colleen?
yeah, no, the only one who understood this.
It's interior. It's an interior radius.
Yeah, you know, I don't even care.
Yeah. So we good there?
Good.
Yeah.
All right, 7.2E6. Parking required for multifamily or mixed-use functions shall be in a parking
Ooh.
garage
Oh,
that may be located below grade. I don't really think we
No.
want to require that, do we?
May,
no,
May, yeah.
good kid.
Finally got one. Huh?
7.2.3. 7.2E, number 3.
said. Isn't that how you spell said?
That's not how you spell use though. Which I think is what it's trying to say, right?
We use
Used.
land used for offsite parking must be bound by a covenant.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Said isn't the English word that I'm looking for.
Well, did we change that when we were discussing it? 'Cause I remember us talking about how odd that sounds. Binding such owner and his or her heirs and assigns to maintain the required number of parking spaces for the duration of the use served. What is it?
It was originally written by a lawyer, as I can assure you.
Well, I thought it originally said like forever. Like.
We
in
did,
perpetuity.
it had like 50 years or in
Yeah,
perpetuity or
but
something
it
crazy.
Usually said, it used to say in perpetuity, one time it said in perpetuity.
And we changed it for the duration of the use served,
Right,
right?
right, yeah, I think that was actually a fix
Sure.
or an improvement.
And I know exactly what happened. I was also working on a different project at the same time that was involving all kinds of legalese.
Yeah, I'm sure if the legalese checks out, we're fine, but.
I actually think we should leave it in.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No,
But I do.
is town clerk appropriate?
Yes, because they keep all of our land records.
Okay, thank you.
On the next page. Which would be. Starts with a 1 at the top, so I'm not sure what section. Comes in.
Is it?
So it must be 7.2.E, point F.
It is, it's gotta be, you're right.
Because it's E, the next one is G, so it's gonna be 7.2 F.
What was the title?
That's Leslie's.
Parking space size?
Configuration,
I think it's,
size and configuration.
Yes, I think.
You got location and you got dimensions.
under 1C. I thought we discussed up to 20% of the spaces may be 10 feet long. 10 by 20, rather than shall, I think we can change that from there, I think so.
If I'm changing that.
What was that?
Or should,
one C, changing the shall to may, and up to 20% of the spaces shall be complete.
Although it is up to, so. Anything, anything less than 20% would be okay, so it's 0, right? Under the shall.
Yeah.
Because it's up to 20, so you could still do none.
I think that, no, I think we discussed this, the 60% shall be. And then you can
The others
manipulate the other two
Maybe.
sizes.
Right, that's my recollection of the discussion too. When you look at it, up to 20% shall, so but it's up to you, so 0 is, it just means you can't have any more than 20. Doesn't mean-
All of the spaces could be 9 feet by 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we discussed that a developer could create those other types of size spaces as, you know, something that's attractive to offer to the resident.
Right.
I still, at least the wording should be similar between B and C, so they should both either say may or they should both say shall.
Yeah, I think May is.
May.
Yeah.
So the 7-2 golf parking area dimensions. It's hurt my head, but just trying to establish that language is consistent with the 7-2 Echo private roadway summary.
Yes, it is.
Parallel parking shall be established up to 20 to 25. Yet we have a 25 to 35 and above 35. We have allowed parallel. In the chart.
Well, got, you'll have a parking length width of not more than, so I think it's width, right? Length, I don't think belongs in there.
It's with,
Because the 8-foot length parking space is not gonna do. Help.
So what's the argument against having parallel parking at 25 to 35 miles per hour?
When you have,
Is that like people coming out from around the cars?
when you have when you have parallel parking, you have, it tends to slow traffic down.
Okay.
And it creates a safer walking experience for pedestrians on the other side of the cars.
Yeah.
There's a much longer answer.
Yeah.
but
Sparrow.
So it just shouldn't be allowed in that 25 to 35 and above 35.
I just wrote, coordinate with chart for private roadways.
yeah, because I mean, it says shall be established. Means you're gonna have parallel parking. And then it doesn't agree with the chart.
Yep.
How about maybe, there should be.
So is this, are we trying to say here that on private roadways with a design speed of 20 to 25 miles an hour, you must have parallel parking?
That's what shall means.
Yeah, do we really want that to be the case? For everybody?
We may,
We
because
may,
if it's,
well, we may, well.
I
but we
need to
want-
think about it when I'm.
Right, but this like requires it. The way this reads.
Right, I'm gonna look at these two things
Okay,
together and figure it out.
All right. Anybody else have anything burning? All my other stuff is mostly formatted.
I think that was all the big stuff.
We did add a table in the lighting section.
Yep.
For candles, that is just. Wanted to. Sure that was clear that it was there and
Here. What page is the light?
739 says it. Yeah, you adapted the handout that you gave us at the last
Yes,
meeting, right?
yeah.
To put all the uses of the same light intensity together.
instead of having 20 different listings.
Yes, yep.
7
that
what?
are It's on the opposite page from this.
Page number 7. Okay.
So that
Which-
everything that it comes in at a 0.3 foot candle is in the same section, so it doesn't have to be.
Put those outdoor storage in nursing home on that table you gave us were not 0.3, but they were 3.0 and 5.0.
Funeral home and what?
It's for outdoor storage.
Yep.
It says 0.3, but on the handout, I thought outdoor storage said 3.0.
Okay.
And
And 3.0 is a lot of light.
well, it's okay, so on the handout you gave us.
Yep.
Right hand column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the bottom.
Okay, I don't have it with me.
Outdoor, oh, I see what happened. Outdoor storage says 3.0,
Okay,
so.
Typo?
I don't think it's a typo. I think it's actually, I think people who have. Lot of light. Yeah, they put a lot of light out there for safety and security reasons.
That's still
a
twice
lot of light.
the light for a surface parking
This
spot.
was a page you gave us
Yeah,
last week.
Surface parking lot shouldn't be more, should be between 0.5 and 1.
Well, I'm wondering why things like funeral home need so much light.
Actually,
I guess, but usually in the day.
sure, that is a very good point.
Sale of firearms too seems strange. For having so much light. I think sale of alcohol doesn't require so much light.
Well, it's a lot, right?
It's max average,
Right.
right? So the max you can do for sale of alcohol is 0.8, but the max you can do for a firearm place is 6. I just don't understand why some places need so much light compared to other places. I get some of them, like I think outdoor storage would make sense to have more light. You probably have security cameras as well in your outdoor storage, so that would make sense. Funeral home,
You know, some of these are really odd because on the original table that you gave us, was the 2.4 is. It's 2.4 to 0.6.
Yeah.
What?
The original table that you gave us for these 2.4s, say 2.4 to 0.6, not 2.4 to 6.0.
that would make more sense.
Well, and this might make more sense if it was 0.8 to 2.0.
Yeah. Because they're up, yeah.
I think we've got some typo.
In the original, but that looks like, I mean, the original looks like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was, that looks like it was pulled from somewhere.
Also, what's the difference between keeping of animals and a kennel? And why does keeping of animals require so much less light?
Because it's like cows in a barn,
Sure,
or goats in a shed.
we're ever gonna have that.
We're probably more likely to have goats than cows. But beyond that, I'm not willing to opine.
In the city, 6 ends.
Well, you better have 0.1 average candle light for them.
With it.
All right, I will review that.
Are all of these building types somewhere in these regulations as well? Like natural resource removal, do we have any of that in the city that's specified in these things?
These aren't building types, they're
The uses,
uses.
yeah, so do we have a use that's listed in this regulation
be
about natural resource
temporary.
removal?
For instance, if somebody is. When I think. Oh, God, I'm turning into it. Well, eventually I'm turning into a city of Groton nerd. I think it was the 604 building at EB. Where they had to excavate a lot.
Yeah.
And so. Natural resource removal tends to be a temporary thing,
Sure.
and then you get truck routes.
Sure, I mean, you still can't do it if it's not in the regs, so somewhere in the regs, there must be natural resource removal, right?
Probably might be under standards.
It's worth a look at.
Yeah, but there's some things on the original handout that you gave us, doesn't there?
Okay, I will.
A little clunky. Other burning issues. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nada.
Okay. Report of commission, anything? Jason, you okay? You're still looking at the chart. Bill?
This is where, like, we talk about the, so
Report of commission? Yeah, but what's in the,
we had another, perfect, that's it,
Oh,
Yeah, the training.
the train.
the
Yep.
train. Jeez,
This
And-
was by Mr. Poland was the.
Yeah.
yeah,
I missed it, but I saw it was happening.
if you get a chance to get it, it was very good, because he did mention that multifamily residence is a great asset right now to redevelopment. That, has strength of market to reposition retail. One thing that he did comment on that really surprised me is he said, when you're building residential over commercial. Like if you're having the 2-story or higher building where it's gotta be commercial on the first floor and residential up above.
Sure.
If it has commercial on the bottom and residential above, it has to have an elevator. And he said, because of the cost of the elevator, it's not reasonable or feasible for developers to do, so they're not building it.
Which is why the way this is written. We don't have to have that. Configuration, we can have one building. That's commercial and one building that's residential.
He's definitely.
I know, I'm saying, we don't,
well, that's what we're not requiring mixed use buildings.
you can have mixed use on a parcel,
Right, but not a
But it
mixed use
doesn't-
building.
correct,
That's
we
not
don't
required.
require.
We're not actually requiring mixed use on a parcel, are we?
No.
No, we're not requiring that.
Give an
But we're not-
opportunity to.
that's a mistake we're already avoiding.
Well, I was surprised to hear him say that, though. I think
I think
that.
the required an elevator?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
I wonder if there are any caveats to that, because we all along have been picking out, 4-story parcels in the GCR 50. Having the opportunity for first floor retail.
Well, that's like ADA stuff, isn't it? That elevator would be an ADA requirement, Americans with disabilities,
Yeah,
so.
and we've got, there's. This is why when I was writing all of this, I tried to allow for the greatest flexibility. And by putting the buildings closer to the street and then having parking in the back, it allows for buildings that might be less desirable on a street. You can still have the use, but you can put it behind if you want to, in a separate building or whatever. It allows for more flexibility in terms of parcel design. and layout.
Well, I mean, there's other ways to get around the ADA. There are ways to deal with the ADA things like putting them all on the first floor, right? You can.
You have to have a certain number of dwelling
Well,
units
you-
on the first floor,
That are handicap accessible.
Right.
But you can deal with the ADA requirements by doing that, rather than putting in an elevator. And it could be that the reason you need an elevator when you have retail on the first floor and the second floor is because the only way to get to the dwelling units is an elevator.
And I mean, we wouldn't have to worry about that anywhere in our regs because the ADA is federal, right? So, you know, it's assumed that they have to comply either way.
Anything else, any other? Report from commissioners, thanks for that, Sue, that was good.
one other thing, the reason that Sierra could not be here tonight is because she was receiving an award.
Yeah.
Don't ask me anymore, because I don't remember. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Good.
It's a great thing.
Any public communications? Leslie, you got anything?
I had a brief conversation with one of the property owners in the GCR zone, the GC zone. Just wanting to know
Yep.
where we were. and How's it going?
We're dancing as fast as we can.
Yeah.
So next step is special meeting on the 29th, right?
Yeah.
And where we're gonna. Hopefully we'll have. These will be all set, and ready to go, and we're gonna really focus on getting ready for the public. Meeting on the 19th, right?
So
That's the focus.
I would think that, well, I guess the question is, where are we at with the renderings of,
I. Will call and find out.
Is there any chance, I know that we want to do like a PowerPoint presentation, is there any chance we can get that presentation for the 29th meeting? Just so when we're preparing, we know what we're looking at, or do you think that meeting would be more about making the PowerPoint rather than?
I'm going to call tomorrow. and Get as soon as I can get it.
In terms of the renderings, okay, so that's good, but in terms of this, I think it would be good for people to start drafting slides before the 29th. So we cover something.
Yeah.
And so my request for that would be. What's the slide design? What's what's the design of the slide? So everybody doesn't come in with a different.
I think if everybody can come in with slides that have the information,
Okay, then not where it just.
and then we
bullets?
can,
Okay,
and if you have images of like before and after, or you, like, what did somebody do with some interesting site that sort of looks like what?
So if we're all making our own slides then, or at least making draft slides,
Yeah.
should they be based on like what topic we have?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, but Colleen's not here, so someone has to tell her that she's gonna make slides now. And Bob hasn't been here for the past 2 meetings and we arbitrarily gave him a topic.
I already told them about that.
Okay.
So I'll contact Bob and
I just wanna make sure that.
I'll take that.
Where's your son?
You.
We gave you something to talk about and now you have homework about
We're
it.
gonna email them on the 28th of August.
That's what happens when you don't come to a meeting.
That's right.
Hey,
Okay,
here's
so
the one. Okay.
Another question I had, which I guess is unavoidable at this point, do you not think it'll be a bit confusing November 19th when we open with a public hearing continuation unrelated to what we're
That's-
talking about?
I think that's an issue.
I get that at this point, I don't think we can change that, but
I'm not worried about that.
Sure.
Let's figure out what we need for this, and it is, because that is one of our obligations to ourselves.
I'm just concerned that people at the presentation will get confused when we say,
Yep.
welcome to our public hearing, and then never mind, this isn't a public hearing about what you think this is a public hearing about, you know, I just.
Yeah.
Can we put that at the end of our agenda?
The
Just explain it's.
PSCD one.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
POCD
yeah,
public
yeah,
hearing. So we have the presentation night first, and then we, yeah, because I don't remember.
We may end up, depending upon people's schedules who are involved in that presentation, it may actually get pushed.
The POCD presentation.
Yeah,
Could
the-
we,
resiliency,
could we keep the POCD resiliency public hearing open, not close it on the 19th, keep it open the 19th and then close it on our regular December meeting?
Our regular December meeting is our public hearing where we present.
That's when we're gonna have the public hearing for the,
Okay.
I'm
So
not
we can't-
worried about pushing off the resiliency one.
If you don't have any concern, I just wanted to make sure.
The 19th.
The 19th,
No, not,
19 is the presentation.
it's public, but it's not a
It's public,
public
like,
hearing.
this is where we're gonna like, give everybody an index card and say, you know, what questions do you have? And
This is already,
This is what we're thinking about. What do you?
my last logistical question would be, what do we expect any advertisement whatsoever for the November 19th meeting? And if so, what advertisement would we expect?
Yes, and Sierra's already started to put together things that can be put on people's doorknobs. And we're gonna put, guess who those people are? She's working on it and she's
Okay.
putting, it'll be online, it'll be in the
Facebook.
paper, it'll be
Okay.
on Facebook.
Okay.
And if anybody has any other ideas, all ears, we want people that,
The newsletter might be a good idea. as well.
yes, exactly, yes. Should be.
All right, motion to adjourn. Sue and Cameron. And I assume it's 400.
Aye.
Aye, and that would be at 9:57. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.